Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on October the 10th, 2017. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, putting on the angriest pants you've ever seen.
Caffeine Rage, and boy, I think I'm going to live up to that one.
On today's show, we will of course be discussing the games that we've played. Loot boxes are corrupting AAA releases. OpenCritic takes a stance against loot boxes. An RPG helps fight depression in Japanese people. Microsoft is rumored to want to extend its PUBG exclusivity for Xbox. Telltale will remove image of a real-life assassination victim from Batman: The Enemy Within. We'll have our weekly community corner and our weekly Steam discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Good evening, Rage. How are you?
Angry. But then again, I'm reading gaming news.
Well, you're not angry yet. You're getting there, but you're not there yet, I don't think.
You're just going to put me a couple more times. I'm just starting to turn green.
Yeah, we were doing our inside baseball stuff, getting ready for the show, and you were starting to get a little frustrated. But we didn't. I mean, we tried really hard not to go into these in-depth discussions. Yeah, most of the time.
If you want instant Hulk mode, just send me over to political news.
Oh God, don't get me started there either. Tennessee's been in the news too because Bob Corker's going ham because he's retiring, so he doesn't care what people think anymore. Apparently. So
well, I don't know who this is. So
on the one hand, go you, Bob. On the other hand, why? We've been kept out of the limelight for the most part.
Dare I ask what he said?
He called the White House an adult babysitting service.
It was him that said that?
Yeah.
Because I saw that earlier, and it's like, who said that?
Yep, that's Tennessee Senator Bob Corker, the once governor of Tennessee.
Well, he's not wrong.
He came to my high school once. I didn't know who he was then. So yeah, that's this American life right here with me.
No, that's a different podcast.
It is. That's why I said that. I've been listening to several new podcasts lately, and I need to compile that question list that one of our listeners had with me on Steam so that I can ask you the questions and then also answer some of the ones that I didn't answer.
Well, simple. 42, 40 plus 2.
But I checked out a couple of new podcasts this week that are pretty interesting, and that was one of the questions he asked. Like, what other shows do you listen to that aren't just like the podcasts you've talked about, like Co-optional and Podquisition and that sort of thing?
I'm so behind on my podcast. I download them once every couple weeks, and then I have 2 days worth of audio. I mean, literally 48 hours of audio.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts constantly. I'm caught up on like my top 5 shows, but all of my other podcasts, I sort of rotate. Like they'll build up, and then I'll listen to all of the built-up episodes and neglect the other shows so that they'll build up.
Oh, so you like that build-up, do you?
Yeah, I do. But I've got like 5 podcasts that I listen to. Like as soon as their episodes go live, they go to the top of the queue. So
hit the music.
Hi-oh. I see what you did there. But no, it's not time for that. It is in fact time for us to go talk about the games that we played this week. Rage. Both of us have a very short list.
Yeah, mine is due to a very, very, very frustrating weekend for me. Shall I tell you about my weekend?
I know some of what happened this weekend, but feel free to regale all of us with the tale.
Well, all of my games I played this week are mobile games. Mostly because, well, whenever I do the Sunday Sampler, usually I do my download either Thursday or Friday, really depending on, if there's a game that, I gotta try this now. So I tried to download a couple games Friday evening, and I tweeted out the images of this, and they're also on Discord, where the Steam servers were shitting themselves. No, wait, I should take that back. They weren't, because that would actually give more bandwidth than what I was getting. I didn't realize that the timer on the estimated time to download could actually go over a year. I'm not joking.
Wow.
At one point, I had over a year on my download. I wish I was joking about that, but I was trying to download and I was getting bytes per second.
That is pretty small.
I mean, I downloaded faster than that when I was on a phone modem. So, that's the reason why there wasn't a Sunday sampler. I was on an extreme nocturnal sleep cycle then as well, so I was up till about mid-Saturday morning trying to get some sort of download working from Steam, and it just wasn't happening. And I was going between pretty much all the Steam servers. If you saw me going on and offline Friday evening, that's what was going on. I would change my download server, restart Steam. It would start the download at a little bit of a sluggish pace, and then it would just drop off completely. There had to be some sort of DDoS going on. And it wasn't my internet. I checked that. It was Steam. So, after that, slept till Sunday evening, or early Sunday morning, and the electric company was going to do line work in my area Sunday. And they posted notices around my neighborhood to say, power's going to go out around 8 in the morning and it'll be back on by 3. Well, then I get a phone call saying, well, our crews are delayed. They're going to start at 10, then noon. And eventually, I just gave up on trying to do anything Sunday. And, guess what? The crews never did the work in the area. So, day wasted for nothing. Which means my render day was Monday, which was usually the day I play something random for the podcast. So, my entire game list is mobile games.
There you
You
go.
can see why, and also didn't end up recording to Vandy this weekend, and you can see why I was not in the mood to record by Sunday evening, right, Jared?
Yes. I do see. Although that kind of worked out for both of us. I wasn't sick, but I was feeling a little crummy.
Well,
because Katie had been sick and King was getting sick, and I was like, I just need to rest.
Well, also, whenever I woke up with my alarm, and I got your text message, I woke up, my back was aching, and I didn't sleep well, and saw the message, and with how the last couple of days have been, I'm not risking storms in your area, or whatever was causing the power issues in your area. It's like, I know how this is going to go. I'm just going to text you, say forget it, and go back to sleep.
Right.
Because personally, I was already in a grumpy mood. I had the grumpy pants on. Those aren't the fun pants.
No.
So, shall we get to the games I played after rambling on and on and on?
Yeah, let's get to the games you played.
So, I played 2 mobile games. The first one is Pixel Starships, and boy, did this one go quickly. It quickly went off my phone. This is essentially a MOBA with the idea, or I shouldn't say MOBA, MMO, with the ideas behind FTL.
Okay.
A sort of the similar style, only no pulls, because, they can't really do that in an MMO situation. There's a pretty big emphasis on PvP combat, but there's a fair amount of PvE stuff as well. And the reason why it quickly went off my phone was that they really try to push you on trying to pay to get extra stuff, extra currency, to the point that I quickly hit to the point where I was just overpowered by all the PvE stuff. I would go in on a mission, and the ship would literally kick my ass. I would go on an away mission where you send your crew down, it would be 3-on-2 and they would be higher level than me. And this was me playing less than 30 minutes. So, yeah, they have a slight balancing issue to go through. And they also try to push this subscription service. Yes, a subscription MMO on a fucking phone. Hell, the subscription model for MMOs is pretty much dead with the exception of WoW. So the idea of having that on a phone to double your resources on top of being able to buy the currency straight up is, tells me a little bit of just about how they're trying to push the balance of this game.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing, so I've played this game before, but I played it roughly a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, when it was brand new. And what you're describing is basically what it was then. Like, the features list that I looked up, when I followed your link, has a couple of things on it I don't remember, because there were not support craft before. It says build starships of your own design, but...
Yeah, there's I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it. When you're in your starship, you're given basically the hull to work with. And you have a block system. Think of I guess a good way to talk about it is sort of how XCOM has it, where you build up your base. Only, yes, you can put your things anywhere, but there's not really enough room to try to stagger the floor, so you end up with a deck system like, your traditional spaceships, sci-fi spaceships.
Right.
So that's why I was kind of going with the XCOM idea, is that you really can't do anything otherwise, at least with the starter ships or the. I went through 2 hulls in the first 30 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour. Because it has the real-time building mechanic where, start building and then come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what it was to begin with. I just didn't, I don't remember that being one of the features that they said before, but, I mean, that's how it was before. You had, things that you could slot in, basically, and kind of build your ship.
Kinda,
but the way
but you have to use pretty much all your space for... really storage, because you have to have storage for minerals, you have to have storage for gas, which is the starter resources. I assume that there's more. And that eats up, just on your spaceship. You can only have so many crew quarters, so, you have to spend more money leveling that up instead of, just building a secondary one. And not that you really have space for it anyway. It's very frustrating because I really wanted to like this game.
Yeah.
But it's just,
I remember liking it, but the difficulty wasn't, particularly on the PvE side, wasn't as bad when I played it. Because I got
to the point where if the missions didn't roll me just shooting an asteroid for mining, it was going to be at least a tough fight. And the controls were a little bit finicky to begin with. How they handle it is that at the bottom of your phone, you'll have, or I should say, your mobile device, tablet, whatever. You have the icons for your various ship systems, your engines, and any weapons that you may have. And I assume that, more appears as you get bigger ships. But, starter ships don't really get that many. But anyway, you press on it and you swipe up and down to control your power. And it's very finicky. So if you want to just take one power off your engine to add more to your weapons to bring them up to full power, which, it doesn't save your power settings, by the way. So, always it had one bar on my power or my primary weapon until I upgraded my reactor, which was irritating as hell. You had to try to get it where it would take one bar off and not completely drain your engine so that you would lose all your dodge chance. And it was just, ugh. Can you tell I didn't like this?
I can tell.
I mean, I wanted to. It has a good art style. It has that, a really nice pixel art style. It's just, they can't design a game for beans. And they can't balance it to save their fucking life, it seems.
Yeah.
Or I should say their new player experience isn't exactly optimized, if you want to use business speak.
Yeah, it sounds like it just sounds like they've let the balance get away.
Unless I completely screwed up, which I shouldn't be able to screw up to the point where I couldn't do any PvE stuff within 30 minutes. I mean, that should be impossible.
I got to like the 4th world in the PvE, or the 4th place, because you go to like a moon or something, and so it's not exactly a world, but I got to the 4th area in like the PvE mode. I think there were 10 when I started playing. I don't know how many there are now.
No idea. I didn't even complete one of the areas because it just... well, let's put it this way. It started throwing me against enemies with shields that I couldn't get through while they just pounded my reactor. I mean, I was sitting here trying to think, how did I screw this up? I mean, am I supposed to have shields? I don't even have room to get a shield room in my ship. Let alone anything else, because there's not enough room to put the cargo areas to be able to upgrade my overall space to be able to buy the bigger ships without putting those in.
Yeah, I got like they must have really either slowed down the progression or changed something, because I was on like the 4th ship upgrade as well. Like, it was no problem.
I mean, hulls got upgraded really quickly, just a little bit of extra power. But it didn't give enough room to really do anything different. It just gave a little bit extra stats.
Yeah. I think I was in a destroyer, or...
I was in the mining vessel.
Yeah, I was in either a destroyer or a cruiser. I don't remember which. But, I mean, yeah. I can't go look it up, though, because I played it on iOS, or on my iPad at my old job, so...
Oh.
I can't recover my account. If I want to play again, I'd have to start over.
Yeah, and it sounds like, if my experience is the indicative experience, probably not a good idea.
Yeah. I'm not really interested in going back and playing it anyways, even if it was great. I have several mobile games I'm playing right now, like on rotation, that I enjoy, so...
Well, I just wanted to try a couple to at least have something to talk about, because I don't think you want to hear about me playing matchmaking and crossed out, getting a little bit frustrated with just daytime matchmaking not being all that great. Evening matchmaking's fine, but also playing the market and building up to the point where I'm making epics to sell now.
Fancy. I've gotten back into World of Warships.
Uh-oh.
I haven't played it a ton, but I've played it a little bit just about every day. But, I mean, I wasn't going to talk about it again this week.
Well, I'm also Bronze 2 and Pinball FX3. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, working up to being that Pinball Grand Wizard. Wait, does that sound wrong?
Oh.
You laughed harder at that joke than you should have.
Probably.
Anyway, let's talk about another mobile game. Vertigo Racing. This was another one that was suggested to me in the Google Play Store, and it looked alright. Didn't play all that well. This is, I would technically call this a runner game where you only really control the brake and the acceleration of the car, and everything else is controlled by the game itself. It tries to keep in the middle of the road, and I should say it tries, as in, it tries to do it, after having a few too many to drink. The problem with this game is that, one, the camera, but also, let's talk about the car first. The car, it doesn't try to do what you would consider a normal racing line.
Okay.
Well, okay. In literally any racing game where you had control of the car, which means pretty much all of them. If there was a chicane, a very gentle left and a very gentle right, very short turns. How would you approach that turn?
It depends.
I'm talking very shallow, just left and right.
Very, very shallow. I'd try and run it basically a straight line.
This game, it tries to take a hard left, hard right, stay in the middle of the road. Fishtail because, it didn't take the line that you're expecting, and then go promptly off into the abyss.
Nice.
Yeah. And also it has several, what I call fuck you moments, where this is a mobile racing game, so you could expect them to try to spice it up a little bit by having jumps. And often the jumps are right before a very hard turn. So you hit the jump at speed, going usually at the end of a fairly long stretch, and you go sailing off the road into the abyss.
Okay.
And the game has a mini map. It doesn't, at least it doesn't show it on any of the screenshots. It's default off, and the camera hides often in the trees. The camera operators had as many to drink as the driver, it seems.
He's gone to take a nap in the trees.
Yeah, it's about as useful the camera is as the cinematic camera in the GTA series.
Okay.
I mean, granted, this one usually stays behind the driver, but it will shift sides of the road, and also if there's tall trees, it doesn't really show it in any of the screenshots, but the tall trees will actually block the camera. There was one section on the snow map, or at least the first snow map. I'm not sure there's another one, because snow maps are usually a fun theme for racing games, where there's a long section of pine trees. And I use the term drone because it's kind of just a general way to call it, because this isn't a chase cam. A chase cam is usually directly behind the car, like you would expect. This is like an isometric chase cam. It's weird. And it's also fixed to the car, so whenever the car does that, fishtaily thing, the camera sways. Because of course it does, right?
Absolutely. That's what you want, the camera to sway back and forth.
Yeah, it simulates car sickness. But the camera is swaying back and forth, going through trees. You can't see a fucking thing because you don't have the mini-map on, because that's not on by default. And then there's a jump, and it tells you right off in the abyss. I don't know how this is so highly rated. I mean, don't get me wrong. Whenever you memorize the track well enough, it can be fun. But it's also very frustrating because it has a lot of, fuck you moments.
Right. I'll probably download this to my phone and let my kid play it. He'd probably like it.
It does have a couple things I do like. They have the kind of the progression of cars, different cars. Basically, each one is at least mostly an upgrade to the next one. Granted, there's some bonuses and some negatives. Like, I think it's the third car is very prone to fishtail because it's not as good at handling, but it's also faster. So, whenever it starts fishtailing, you have to try to, just hope that the AI or, whatever is going on with it, straightens out. They make it where all the cars are still relevant, even though you've moved on to the next, because each track, it has a set of cups for each car. So your starter car has the shortest track cup for each one. Usually a few kilometers. Then the next car up is a few more kilometers, and so on, so on, so on. And I do like that they keep all the cars relevant like that, because each cup also gives you a bonus amount of coins to use on upgrades and unlocking more cars and more tracks. So I do like that. I do applaud them for that. And I also have to say I like the music in this game. Maybe I'm just a sucker for surf guitar, but it has a very upbeat and fast music that kind of matches the overall action of the game. It's just that camera, it's just painful to use. And I looked, and I didn't see a way to change it. And it's just the point where, if you're not careful, you're just going to drive into something because you can't see what you're doing. The minimap does help a lot, though. It's just very frustrating.
Yeah. All right, I'll probably download this and let my kid play it, see if he likes it. But otherwise, yeah, it sounds interesting, but you've brought up a lot of problems that I would hate for driving games. But I mean, since you're not driving the car, I don't know. I'd have to try it. It's piqued my interest.
It's kind of a weird thing, and also the acceleration and breaker, technically digital, but they're just on and off because it's touchscreen,
right?
But there's a bit of a delay on the acceleration, because it's just not going to instantly jump forward. That it's not as bad as you would think. Actually, when the car behaves, it's not bad, but that fishtail issue is what really killed it for me, because there's a couple times that I went off a jump just as the car started to fishtail. It would turn in air, and when it landed, it would just shoot off, pretty much off the road. Unless I caught it, as it was, noticed that it was doing that switch around. And just slammed on the brakes. But then I kind of have to hope that, I didn't go too far and the car's just going to drive off anyway as it tries to correct itself. Which it did do a couple times, by the way. And there's no reverse, so you can't, do a 3-point turn to turn back around. I haven't found a racing game I really liked on mobile yet. Which is, a little disappointing, but, not unexpected. Because racing, really requires a bit of a fine touch. And if I allowed my PlayStation 4 controller to, work on it, I probably have a lot less of an issue. Because I just don't like the on-screen joystick thing.
I talked about Skidstorm a couple weeks ago, didn't I? Have you tried that one?
No.
It's a really fun arcadey game that you might like. Racing game.
Does it go vroom?
It goes vroom. There are many vrooms. There's a vroom vroom. Vroom, vroom.
Oh, and I do have to say, I do like the car selection. More of a classic car selection than anything else.
Yeah.
You can only see, Mustangs and, muscle cars so many times, and these are more, I would say, 50s, 40s cars. Right. Not even hot rods, just, classic cars. It's a nice selection. It's just, I really wish it didn't have that camera issue. And the racing line was a little bit more intelligent.
Yeah, they've got 4 cars listed here in the screenshot.
Yeah, there's, I want to say, a dozen to unlock. Here, I'll sell you the game right now. The second car is a pink. I can't even think of it. I can't even. Well, I think that's it on the screenshot. That pink monstrosity.
Looks kind of like, I don't know, maybe a Studebaker or a Ford V8 or something like that.
I think that's the second car. It's called the Peggy Sue.
Oh, yeah, I'm in.
Well, just sold me the game.
I downloaded it to my phone. I'll check it out later.
Yeah, maybe I'm being overly harsh on it. Yeah, maybe I'm just being a grumpy, Mr. Grumpy Pants this week.
Yeah, I've never really liked very many racing games on mobile devices anyways.
Hey, I gave it a fair shake.
I hate the ones that use accelerometer where you have to turn your phone to turn. That's stupid, and they never work right. I just like the ones that have, the sort of on-screen joysticks.
Because those never work right, or you just you don't have the tactile feel, so you can't tell just how far you're turning, and you're blocking your screen.
Yep. But not semi, but more, I guess, complicated racing games don't work again because you only have so much screen real estate, and if my thumbs are all over it, I can't see what I'm doing. That's not fun.
Well, simple. Get smaller thumbs.
Right. I'll just chop my thumbs in half. That would work.
Yeah, remember, lengthwise, not the long way.
Right.
Because if you go at the knuckle, you just have these little stubby things. If you go lengthwise, then you have half of a long thumb.
Maybe I could have 2 thumbs on each hand if I do it right.
No, simple. You transplant your thumbs to your feet, and then you play with your feet. I have no idea how this helps, but you have monkey feet now.
There you go. I'd be like Curious George.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you'd be a different type of Curious George.
Indeed.
What's George doing to the man in the yellow hat? He's just curious. And I've just ruined that book for you now.
Oh, nope. You made it better.
Curious George and the man in the yellow hat has an interesting relationship.
You know, there was like a weird movie that came out in the 70s. It was French about this woman who has an affair with a monkey.
A weird French movie?
But this woman has an affair with a monkey. And like everyone is okay with it.
Especially the monkey.
I'm into a lot of things and can handle a lot of things, but animal sodomy just doesn't ring true. It doesn't work for me. Animals can't give consent.
At least with that attitude.
So I guess that's where I draw the line.
So no Kids, bestiality for you. Got
it. No bestiality and no pedophilia.
Okay, so we've gotten Jared's no-go list to pedophilia, bestiality, and clowns.
Yeah.
So, no child clown animals. Got it.
That sounds good. None of that.
I was about to say, you changed your mind that quickly?
No, not having none of that sounds good.
Okay.
Okie dokie. Well, are you wrapped up?
Yeah, I think so.
Okie dokie. Well, I also only had 2 games this week. I just didn't have time to play very many other games, and the time that I did have, I was engrossed in X3 Albion Prelude some more. So I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah,
and
Jared has a problem.
I'm going to have story time like how I used to have for EVE Online. Yeah,
but you're not dicking anyone over this time around. Well, as far as I know.
I dicked those NPCs over. So I said last time that I was really, really trying to learn like much more in depth, just the intricacies of the economy and the what did I say it was called? Their god system or whatever that like generates or that manages the economy and all of the NPC stations and stuff like that. So I've been building my money, building up a couple of station complexes and getting more trading ships, like ones that I'm like not exactly manually directing. I've set them up on routines, but instead of it being like the fully automated universe trader, you just hit go when they go do their thing. I've put in like predefined or set predefined rules that they follow, so I have a little bit tighter control over them, and to hopefully keep them from wandering into pirate systems and getting blown the fuck up.
It sounds like you're talking from experience there.
Yep, I've had that happen a few times. I mean, you can outfit your universe traders, try and have drones for defense, and they'll try and max out their ship shields and stuff like that. But if they wander into a pirate sector, they're pretty much fucked. Unless they can quickly jump to another system.
Yeah, but they're not that smart to say, wait a minute.
No, when that happens, they'll switch to like try and retreat to dock at the nearest station or fly through the nearest
Try to dock to the
gate.
nearest station, and it just happens to be the Botany Bay. Botany Bay! Oh, no!
But they don't automatically, like you can't even set it to where that they'll automatically just use their jump drive to escape. They have to fly it at sublight speeds to either dock at a safe station or fly through a warp gate. And in the big pirate sectors, they'll just shoot all of the drones out of the sky and then blow up your freighter.
And then
so that's happened a couple times. Yep. Thanks for the loot. Thanks for 10,000 energy cells. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to deal with them all.
But so anyways, I've been building up complexes, getting more and more trading ships working, and I finally decide, okay, I'm going to build this big ass complex that produces every weapon that I can produce from this one race that I've got like the highest rating with, and they let me buy all of their stations. Particularly everything that uses like 3 specific resources, so that I don't have to have like an entire support network. I can use stuff that I already have in place to keep this station running. And so I do. I build this station and I put it in a border sector between two of the alien races, so it's a high traffic area. It doesn't have great security, but good enough, I think. So I put the station there. It starts to build up. It starts to increase the number of NPC traders that are coming into the system. So that attracts pirates. The pirates set up a pirate base in the system.
Like you do.
I'm like you would do to try and, take control of something like that.
You'd smell the rum from your base.
And I start getting all these warnings, like, oh, your stuff's under attack. I'm like, what? So I go look at that system, and a pirate base has spawned. And I'm like, well, fuck. I guess they were attracted to the increase in commerce, and it's not a high security area. So
yeah,
I have
Yarg!
I have a small defensive fleet, but nowhere near enough to take on a pirate base. But I send all my ships there and set them to defend the station, and just hope to God that I can defend my 40 million credit investment until I can figure out a more permanent solution. So I go online and I'm like, what can I do to kill these pirates? And it turns out that you can change the security rating of a system if you can build it up enough. So the best way to do that is to increase massively the amount of NPCs that are flying to your sector. And then basically the god system is like, oh, we should protect all of our stuff that's here because we have so many ships flying through and there's pirates. So what I did was I used my growing wealth to go onto the commodities trading market. I bought every single commodity for all of the weapons in that area of space in a 3-system radius, so that you could not buy weapons or shields or missiles or ammunition or anything without coming to my station.
And then the government comes and busts your monopoly.
Nope, they did not do that. The traffic in that system got so high that it bumped it from border security to core system security, and the Argon Navy showed up and blew those pirates to hell. And then I sold all of my commodities because it was really causing a strain on the system, and I didn't want to completely break everything, so I sold all the commodities.
Break everything, but you bought every single weapon in a how many sector area?
It was a 3-sector radius from my system that I was in, so
didn't
want to break lot of stuff.
Huh.
I didn't want to break it that much. I wound up breaking even. Some of the commodities I sold back, or when I sold them again on the commodities market, I made money on them. Some of them were super low demand anyways, and I lost money because of the broker fees and stuff. So I about broke even. But that only cost me 50 million credits to do.
Oh, well, so only 50 million?
So yeah, that's story time. I built a big base. I attracted some pirates. I ruined the local economy to specifically, tailor the game engine to come help me. And then I just sold all my stuff. So that was fun. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, just buy this game. It's amazing for that.
Yeah, but then you're not taking over other players, and that's hardly fun.
I find many more things enjoyable than just dicking over other players, although that can be fun sometimes. I don't really like the mining system very much in Albion Prelude. It's not very good. That's the one thing that I've never found a game that does better than Eve. Because it's the right amount of both, really deep. There's a lot of things to consider when you're mining, but also it's not super intense. You just use mining lasers and you park and you mine when you're actually ready to do it. And all these other games, there's you got to blow up the asteroid, and then you have to collect the stuff, and then you have to move to the next one and scan it and blow it up. It's I get that that's more realistic, but sometimes it's better to sacrifice realism for fun.
Well, look at it this way. With this system, you can just sit there and go, pew, 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 pew.
No, I sit there and go, all right. I've actually assigned all of my mining ships to a wing. So I command, they have a wing commander, and I assign them orders to just go mine in systems. And the game will regenerate asteroids and things in a system, but you can strip mine some of the smaller ones in a few hours of play. And I just have them go strip mine the system and drop all the resources off at my station. It's like, look, we have bonus ore. We didn't have to pay for this, technically. I mean, I had to pay for all the ships, but they've paid for themselves many times over at this point. So yeah, that's my X3 Albion Prelude story.
Yeah, I guess I should explain why I chuckled when you talked about your big ass complex. Have you ever seen the SKCD a comic about sweet ass whatever? You know, the moving the hyphen one over at your ass complex. And then I thought, that's Jared.
Yep. It's my ass complex. No, it's like it's like this big string of spaghetti. Building station complexes, once you get past a couple of stations, gets complicated, because if you do it wrong, like, it creates this like tubing that connects all the stations together, which I assume is supposed to be like, I don't know, turbo lifts or something. But the tubing can block the docking bays and things. So you can actually make it to where ships can't land at your station. So, like, I've got this weird, like, cube thing, and I have to, like, very carefully, like, okay, this one goes here, and then in this order, and in this order. That way the tubes don't snake around each other. It's a mess. There's a mod that removes the tubes, but unfortunately it's very out of date, and I'm scared to install it for the fear that it breaks something.
Well, so you just need to, sit down some weekend and do proper cable management.
You can move that stuff around when you get a tractor beam, but I have no idea where to find a tractor beam. And all the guides online are like, whenever you find stuff, it's like, this just randomly appears sometimes. It's like, well, fuck.
Well, simple. You just set all your traders, find tractor beam.
I could write custom scripts and watch for them to do that.
All go to the pirate sector.
One day I'm going to blow up the pirates. That's my goal. I'm going to blow up all the pirates.
Yes, but
I mean, the
not
system
today.
can spawn. Yeah, the system can spawn new pirates, but if you wipe out all the pirates, then it becomes more difficult for them to spawn somewhere that they would be safe, because the systems become considered dangerous to pirates. So it takes a while for them to spawn back. It's a good game, guys. I'm still playing it. I'm going to keep playing it.
Yeah, it's
good.
Look at it this way: it's keeping them out of Eve. Granted, this is just substituting one hard drug for another.
Yeah, the thing is with it being like a single player experience, whenever I need to stop, I don't feel like. See, that's the problem with Eve, is whenever I want to or need to stop, I'm like, but I'm in the middle of this, and if I just leave, my ship's gonna be there, and someone will come blow me up, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'm hanging out with my guild mates or whatever, or my corp mates. It's like, if I leave, whatever. But with this, I'm like, I've had enough for a while. I need to take a break. I could have played it yesterday for like 5 hours, but I was like, you know what? I need a break. So I'm not going to play X3 tonight. And I watched YouTube videos and got some work done. I got like 4 videos rendered last night. But yeah, that's enough for X3. Moving on to the other game this week, the one that probably most people would be excited to hear about, is Cuphead. I bought Cuphead and played it. Actually, I wasn't going to buy it. At least not yet. I was going to wait for it to go on sale. But the other night, Katie and I were driving home from somewhere, and we were just talking.
Well,
and
usually you're driving home from somewhere.
Fair enough. But I told her about it, and so she looked it up, and she's like, this looks amazing. Like, she really loved the art style, and she's like, tell me more about this game. And so I started telling her about it, and like comparing it to other games that she knew, and I was like, well,
it's like Mario, but...
That's actually what I said. I was like, based on all the games it's like Mario if Mario had guns and was like 10 times harder.
Mario had guns?
Well, he has guns now, but she doesn't know that. But anyway, she was like, I mean, we'll buy it, and if I don't like it, then we'll just refund it. So we bought it, and we've been playing it, and she absolutely loves it. We've played Cuphead probably 10 hours this week. It is a great game, and I'm really surprised that I like it too. Part of the reason I like it so much is that I'm playing it with Katie, and there's very few games that she enjoys playing with me for long periods of time. But we can sit down. Well, like, we played Cuphead Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday night for like 3.5 hours, because we didn't have the kid. He was at my mom's house, and we just played and played and played until she was like, okay, I have to go to bed because I have to get up for work in the morning. So for anyone who doesn't know, Cuphead is a super, really hardcore, difficult, like
run and gun platformer.
Run and gun. Yeah, run and gun platformer.
Think old school Contra.
Right. And it has a hand-drawn, like a genuinely hand-drawn art style that replicates cartoons from like the 1930s. And that is the biggest selling point of the game. I mean, that's what has everybody the most interested, like, right off the bat. That was what drew everyone to it when it was first announced, like, I don't know, a couple of centuries ago.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when they originally announced the game, it was current art style.
Yeah. And that art style holds up throughout. We're in the game is divided into three, like, major worlds, or three, like, major portions of the overworld map, and we're in the second portion. And every boss, we're always so excited. Like, we'll read the description of, you know, whatever the boss says and be like, ooh, this sounds interesting. Let's see what this boss looks like. And the art style is great. They do a good job of emulating that style of the 30s without falling into a lot of the pitfalls, because cartoons back then were very, very racist, extremely racist. And they avoid a lot of those pitfalls. So it's more like an homage to it as opposed to just like a straight copy, which I was glad to see.
What, you mean Donald Duck's not a Nazi in this one?
No. I have seen that, where Donald Duck is a Nazi. That Disney cartoon from the 40s.
You know, it does explain a few things.
There's some weird shit, though, that they've put in. Like, some really weird shit. Like, there's this... One of the boss battles is... It's the first boss battle where you're flying in the planes. And she starts out as just like this girl. And then she transforms into... I don't know, like this half bicycle, half blimp lady. And then she she uses some kind of like horoscope based power, I would assume, to transform into like Taurus and Cancer and like different like star sign.
Cancer, she turns into a loot box?
Like interpretations of them, haha. And then eventually she turns into like a giant moon that shoots out spaceships, and it's like, what the fuck happened here? And then there's...
Have you watched some of the 1930s cartoons?
No, I have. But there's a lot of really weird shit.
Yeah, opium was involved.
But the art style looks really good. It holds up throughout. The soundtrack is amazing. It's all 20s, 30s, 40s jazz music of varying styles and tempos, things like that tend to reflect the boss. Like, bigger, sort of scarier bosses will tend to get slower, sort of deeper jazz music, where it's like... Yeah,
there was some big band in there as well, from what I've heard, just watching a few videos.
Yeah, there's some of that. There's 2 or 3 original, like, songs that we've found so far, like, that have lyrics and everything that are just about a couple of characters. There's one that opens up the game where it talks about Cuphead and Mugman, which is player 1 and player 2. So I'm Cuphead and Katie's Mugman. But the soundtrack is great, and so far it hasn't... The soundtrack and the art style have not felt played out at all yet, despite 10 hours and many deaths. We got to an area that it was like a wishing well or something you could walk up to, and you could interact with it, and it would tell you how many times that you died, and we've died 465 times.
I was about to say, has it entered scientific notation mode yet?
Well, we're not even halfway through the game, and the bosses continue to get harder. So I guess I'll just move on to that difficulty, because the game's difficulty is, aside from the art style, like the biggest selling point of the game, because it claims to be a genuinely hard game. And I would compare its difficulty to arcade games of, the 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
Ooh, that hard.
It's very hard. Very hard.
The quarter eaters.
It would be a quarter eater. It would be a perfect quarter eater game. It does have an easy mode, which what the easy mode does is it doesn't lower the difficulty of like attacks or slow down any of those. All it does is it shortens or reduces the health of all the bosses so that you can beat them quicker. But easy mode punishes the player because you can't collect the devil's contracts. So the story of the game is Cuphead and Mugman go to the devil's casino and bet the devil their souls, basically, and they lose. And
like you do.
They're like, please, devil, please give us our souls back. We're sorry. And he's like, well, you two look strong. If you can collect on all of my contracts with other people, then I'll give you your souls back. And so you have to go fight all of the bosses to collect all of the devil's contracts.
Yeah, because he's definitely not going to double cross you, right?
Yeah. But if you do it in easy mode, you don't collect the contracts. It defeats them and it opens up the areas, but you don't get the contracts. So you can't actually do the last two boss fights without the contracts. So if you play on easy mode at all, at any point to get past a boss, you can't actually complete the game.
Also,
you have to
have
all the contracts.
Mode.
Yeah, you have to turn in all the contracts to the devil in order to fight him. So can't do that if you don't get the contracts.
Well, my big question for you is actually about the platforming stages, because originally this was going to be essentially a boss rush game, for lack of a better term.
Run and guns?
Yeah, the run and gun section. Because originally it was just going to be the boss fights, but there was some complaints, which I'll admit that, the fact that they were going boss only put me off a little bit. And I was expecting it to be more platformery than what they were originally selling. And that's probably the reason why we saw such long delays on it.
Well, some of the boss battles themselves can be incredibly platformy. All of the first set of bosses are basically static, like you have a screen that you stay on. But once we got to the second area, those stages move, and there's a lot more platforming elements to those bosses.
Yeah, I saw Boogie, well, I shouldn't say beating, more like attempting to. This guy, he starts off in a bumper car.
Oh, that's the clown. He was the last boss that we beat tonight.
Yeah, I can't remember what he was exactly, but I remember that he started off as a clown or in a bumper car.
Yeah,
and that gets weird.
He's tough. He was really tough. Katie is not the best at the platforming, so she did all right in the first section. Well, okay, let me answer your question before I move on. So the run and gun sections, they're not bad, but you can tell that they were not the focus and they were sort of tacked on. They're really, really short. They're not very difficult. They've got a lot of what's going to kill you most in those is surprise, here's a thing that, just jumps out and wipes you out, basically. There's one where you have to fight bees or something as you run through the platforming level.
Bees? Not the bees.
And you go through, and it's no big deal, really not very challenging. You get to the very end, and there's a boss bee that flies across the screen and hits you and knocks you down. And if you're unable to land on one of the platforms, which they drop once you land on them. So if you're unable to land on one of those and recover, you fall. And if you fall, you die. It doesn't matter how much health you have left. If you fall, you die. So they're okay, but nowhere near as good as the bosses. The bosses are very clearly where all of the work went into.
Yeah, understandably so, because there's a lot of character in that.
Yeah, there is. They're all really interesting. They all are super detailed. They have great looking animations. There's a ton of stuff going on in the background. Particularly on difficult bosses where we were having trouble, every once in a while I would just kind of stop trying and pay attention to what was going on around me. And then be like, oh wow, there's so much little detail. For example, on the clown level, actually you can see a lot of the attacks being choreographed by what happens in the background. There's the roller coaster as it goes around the track. You can see it in the background as it's climbing back up the hill to get towards you. And as soon as it goes off screen, you have about 5 seconds before it comes in to attack you. Every time. So that was pretty neat. There's other examples.
A lot of attention to detail.
Yeah, a lot of attention.
Yeah, there was a video. This week, obviously, just a quick highlight of how they did the animation, and they actually did hand draw it. They did inking onto paper from a sketch essentially. and digitize the ink and then paint it on computers for each cell.
Yeah.
A lot of work went into this game. This wouldn't be a AAA game.
No. I tried playing it a bit solo too, and it's much less fun solo. Part of that is because I don't really typically enjoy this type of game. It's fun, but after like the 10th death on most of these bosses, I'd be like, fuck it, I'm done. But so Katie enjoys it though, so that's what's keeping me like going after dying so many times. But it really is a good game with solid gameplay mechanics. My biggest issue that I had at the beginning was its control layout is dumb. It puts all of your major buttons on A, B, X, and Y, which I'm using an Xbox One controller to play.
The face buttons.
So it puts all of the actions on all the face buttons. But basically, you need to be shooting 100% of the time. And so that makes it difficult to use any of the other buttons because you're constantly holding down, by default, A to shoot. So all I did was move that to right trigger. And I'm, like, just for my own personal sake, I mapped a couple of the other buttons differently. But just, I don't know why they have all four buttons on, or all four of your primary things on the face buttons. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, four face buttons. Yeah, makes sense.
I guess.
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, fair enough. But that's the only issue I've had with control at all. It feels really responsive. It feels like I'm going where I need to go. You know, like if I want to go to that platform, if I miss, I don't feel like the game cheated me. I feel like I fucked up. Like I jumped too soon, or I jumped too late, or I timed my dash improperly. So it's tight, it's hard, but it's fair.
That's what she said.
Except for the bosses. Some of those fuckers can just go die in a hole. But I mean, that's the point of the game, to be difficult.
I was about to say for them to go die in a hole.
Yeah. Fair enough. Both the difficulty and the dying. But playing it co-op also has an advantage in that you can
do a revive.
Respawn. You can revive your teammate an infinite amount of times, just as long as you don't die. So that really helps. Every once in a while, Katie saves me, but typically I'm the one who saves her. But also, I don't feel like I'm doing all of the work either. Like, I can tell whenever, like, if she dies early, for example, or if we're just like, she's not having a good round and is not doing a lot of damage on the boss. Like, I can tell whenever we're both damaging him versus just me. And if she ever dies completely and it's like, well, it's up to you, Jared. Most of the time I don't make it. There's only been a couple of bosses that I've basically felt like I've carried us on. Otherwise, like, she would say, like, you're better than me, but I'm not useless. And that's good, because, like, I was really worried that she was basically going to be useless and hate it. But she picked it up really quick, and even when she's doing badly, she's either essentially pulling aggro on certain bosses, which tend to gravitate and, like, follow you around. Or I'm reviving her, which is giving me, like, energy to do my special attack. So,
charging your
even
ultimate.
If she's doing, yeah, even if she's doing really badly, she's at least feeding me energy to charge my ultimate. So, it works out. It's been a really good experience. I was surprised at how much I liked it. I was surprised at how much I thought that it was just a good game, because I don't typically go for this kind of genre. And I was really surprised that Katie really enjoyed it, but pleasantly surprised in all of those things. So, I don't have any super major complaints yet. Nothing, like, typically I would probably say, like, this game is unfair or hard, but because that's basically what the game is trying to be, it's fine. And it does it well. I don't feel like I'm being cheated, despite the fact that the devil cheated me.
Uh-oh.
And also, it only took us, like, 3 or 4 minutes to get through the tutorial. That was because Katie kind of struggled with the timing a little bit more, but it did not take us 10 minutes to get through the tutorial.
Well, we need to get Katie a gaming blog then.
I recorded that. I gotta put it up. I recorded the tutorial in, like, our first attempt at the first boss. There's no audio. Like, we aren't talking. It's just game audio. But still, it was fun. It's a good game. I don't know if we'll beat it. I'm getting a lot closer to carrying because there's so much more platforming involved with the bosses in stage 2. And Katie just, she can't do multiple things at once. If she's, like, dodging and shooting at the boss, like that's fine. But dodging, shooting, and platforming at the same time, she can't handle it. So the first 3 bosses we fought in stage 2, she's only made it through the first phase of the boss. And then I've had to finish it off. And that took a while. But she'll get there. She's getting better. Plus, I don't mind. I get to play video games with my wife, which doesn't happen very often. I guess one final thing, too, that lends to that is that it's very quick. Like, on the runs that are successful, it's like a minute and a half is how long that they take. So either you're, like, dying a lot and going through, like, you don't feel like you're losing tons of progress. It's like, oh, I made it a minute and I died. Well, let's try again. And it's like, oh, minute 47, I beat him. Sweet.
Yeah, the only thing I really don't like about the game that I've seen is I'm not a big fan of how they display the health. It's not something that you could just... No, I'm serious. It's just something I noticed immediately was that they display the health as a number instead of, like hearts. And for something where it's this difficult and you need to keep track of how much health you have, it's not something that you could just glance at. Especially since it's off in the bottom left corner. And I'm assuming player 2 would be bottom right.
Yeah. And I wasn't, like, about to, like, contradict you or anything. I was actually just, like, breathing.
Oh, I was about to say, what are you laughing at me for finding a criticism for a game I haven't even played?
No. That is really difficult for Katie. She's like half the time I can't keep up with my health because between all of the stuff happening on screen and the fact that it is in the corner, I haven't had a problem with it. So I don't know if that's just like my experience as a gamer or it like I actually just like keep track of how many times I've been hit.
Well, that's
in my
probably
head.
what you're doing is you're just keeping track and not using the hit counter.
Yeah,
well,
Katie you always start with 3 health unless you purchase the power up that gives you 4 health. So it's like, all right, I've started with 3 health and I've been hit, 1 time, 2 times, and then once you start getting revived, you only come back with 1 health. So at that point, it's like, I've been revived once, so from now on, I've only got 1 health. I completely forgot to mention that there's a store, an in-game store that uses in-game coins that you get for completing the run and guns and then getting like really high scores on the bosses to buy upgrades and like different weapon types and things like that. There's a pretty good variety, but so far it's like, well, only these 3 things are useful, and I don't know why I would buy anything else. But you have to buy other stuff to unlock other stuff, so I guess that's why you buy other things.
I did see an article about Cuphead that was incredibly depressing and sad.
What was it?
Praising Cuphead for delivering and not having a bunch of DLC and microtransactions. And no, I'm not joking. There was an article about that. And the fact that that is a headline is unspeakably depressing. And also moves us right to our first news topic.
Indeed. So this is kind of a culmination of several things together.
Yeah, this is just a clusterfuck.
Indeed. Loot boxes are corrupting AAA releases.
Yeah, this has been one of those weeks where all the news is coming out at once about several AAA games. And, it's not, there's not a bit good about this. Unless you're just completely moronic.
It's good if you're one of these companies that's making these games.
Or if you're a whale.
Yeah.
Well, as in someone that spends a lot of money on these microtransactions. Well, let's start off, I guess, with Battlefront 2, because that's a good place to just dive into this. It was kind of the catalyst for a lot of the other discussion.
Yep.
Battlefront 2's progression system? Loot boxes. All the way down.
Yep.
Oh. And on top of that, it's not just loot boxes and that's it for all your power-ups and technically weapon unlocks, because you have to get the crafting materials, which drops from the loot boxes, or is from the loot boxes, to unlock the weapons and all the add-ons to them. But the star cards, your power-ups, are unspeakably powerful and combined to some just insane proportions. Oh, it's like this is the designer's first run at this game, and they've never understood the concept of player balance at all. The fact that the Boba Fett star card has 100% damage resistance is just absurd.
Yeah, that's at level. So the star cards, which are the
well, let's just call them power-ups.
Yeah, the power-ups, the ability power-ups.
Yeah, some of them are just passives, just improves various abilities, while others swap out abilities.
Right, and they have 4 levels to them, and the one for Boba Fett that gets mentioned is like whenever he does like a rocket attack, like he flies up in the air and shoots rockets down at people. Like the level 1 is a 50% damage reduction while you're doing that. Which is like, oh, that sounds pretty good.
That's ridiculous already. It's 50% is ridiculous.
Yeah, 50% is usually like the max, but that's the base. But level 4 is 100% damage reduction. So whenever you do that, basically you're invulnerable. Or literally you're invulnerable.
Yeah, and want to bet that there's no visual indication that he's invulnerable unless you're seeing no damage numbers, if there's damage numbers in the game at all.
There were damage numbers in the first one. I don't know if there are in the second one, but there were in the first one, so. But anyways, yeah, I seriously doubt there's any visual indication on that.
Yeah, it's just, what the fuck?
Yeah,
and there was others. The bombers were also very bad, where it increased their resilience and damage resilience and flat health as well, which made them now on invulnerable.
Yeah, and there were some that did health regeneration and increased that. Like there was one that was like health regeneration was I think 5% at level 1, and then at level 4 it's 40 or 50% health regeneration, like speed.
Yeah, it's just it's absurdly high numbers.
So not only is the entire progression system based around loot boxes, because you get in-game credits for matches, and in Angry Joe's video they showed that they got the same amount of credits regardless of how well they did.
Yeah, it was just everyone on that side got the flat amount from what I could tell, because he was a little upset. Yeah.
But so you get a certain amount of in-game credits, and, you know, after a certain number of matches, you would have enough to buy a box. And then you buy your box, and you get stuff out of it. And you can recycle the things if you don't want them to get a scrap or whatever. I forget exactly what it was called. But, like, the base crafting material. But, I mean, you need, like, hundreds of it.
Widgets.
Yeah, you need, like, several hundred crafting widgets to make the next gun. Like the base level of the next gun, but you only got like 20 maximum from the boxes.
Yeah, and in the beta, there's only 2 guns for every class. Which, yeah, even assuming 3 guns, he did some simple math and was coming up with thousands of hours to unlock everything. Unless you just throw down a bunch of money, because they have confirmed that you can buy these loot boxes for real money. It's just not available in the beta. Oh, and also, on top of everything, there's also cosmetics in the boxes to just, eat up that precious space.
Yep.
Which usually cosmetics are, the prize in the boxes, but now they're the booby prize.
And I think it was Angry Joe that said that you can't recycle the cosmetics unless you have a copy of them.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that in his video, so it must have been someone else. Unless I just kind of, glanced over it or didn't hear it, because there was one place where he was looking and you could see the angry twitch.
Yeah,
granted, he probably was playing it up a little bit, but he was generally pissed.
Yeah, there's also been a lot of other stories and YouTube channels and stuff, so I might not have heard it from the Angry Joe video, might have heard it from someone else, but someone said that you can't recycle the cosmetics unless you already have one. So you can only recycle duplicates.
So the Overwatch method.
Right. Which means that you could get stuck with a ton of garbage that you don't want, but you can't do anything about it.
And how are people defending this game again?
A lot of people aren't, but a lot of people are. And that, I mean,
it blows my mind that people defend loot boxes like this, particularly when it's the entire progression system. And if you are unlucky, you could go dozens of hours and not get upgrades for your preferred class. Because at least in the beta, which I hate the term beta used in this context because it is not a beta. It's a server stress test at best. But let's be perfectly frank. This is a demo. In this demo, the rate that you're getting these boxes is exceptionally slow. So if you're unlucky and you're not getting drops for the class you want, and you're not getting getting enough currency to be able to craft the star cards to unlock these just insanely powerful abilities, you're going to be gimping yourself heavily if you're trying to play the class that you want to play. How the hell is this a good idea?
It's not. I mean, I was really looking forward to Battlefront 2 because they were like, oh, we put the single player back in. There's a new campaign, bringing back all the features that should have been in the first re-release or whatever you want to call it. But whatever, putting them back in Battlefront 2, I was like, awesome. This looks great. Been liking, I like the footage I saw from E3. I like the really early preview stuff. They didn't have any of this in it. But
of course it wasn't in the early preview stuff. That would have turned people off a lot earlier.
Yeah, but obviously, no pre-orders or whatever. We'll see what it does when it releases. And then this. And I'm really sad because I refuse to buy this. I've been going back and forth about whether or not I want to buy games that have...
whether or not to make it a commandment? Yeah.
Whether or not to... Well, I mean, just in general, like as a personal rule, like, do I buy games that have microtransactions? Do I buy games that have loot boxes? Because...
Yeah, it's spreading like crazy. And it's also getting into some of the bigger indie games, like, Rocket League. But Rocket League is not nearly as bad, where it's all limited to just cosmetics, and they're using it to fund the free DLC and their esports scene. So I don't have as big a problem with that. But it's also it's the crate system and not the loot box system. The keys to unlock. So It's not exactly the same to begin with.
But I mean, I'm definitely not going to buy Battlefront 2 because it's just bullshit. Tying your entire progression to a loot box system that encourages people to spend money, which also is literally buying power based on how they do their power-up systems and the amount, like the big difference that different levels of the power-ups have. It would be frustrating and annoying, and I would still be pissed off if it was like, even 5 to 10%, like a 5 or a 10% increase. But I mean, with the Boba Fett example or the Starship examples, like having double health or double regeneration or invincibility.
Yeah, I've never seen abilities this powerful as an unlock.
Like, this is worse than mobile games that I've seen that have this power buying system. It's just bullshit. And they're pushing the envelope. They've been pushing it for years and years and years, and gamers are getting young enough to not remember when, you bought a game and...
Back in my day, we had cheat codes.
And then every once in a while, some big games would have an expansion, but the expansion would be basically another game that only cost you like $40 instead of 60 or whatever. Like, there's less and less people who... Well, I guess there's the way to say it is that there's more and more people who don't know that that's a thing. Because, I mean, it's not like gamers are stopping, like older gamers.
It's just...
Unless they die.
Well, I'm trying to avoid that.
Aren't we all?
Well, not everyone. I mean, there is some that seeking it out.
But, I mean, they're seeing... Yeah, fair enough. But they're seeing how far they can push the envelope. And they're gonna keep going. I mean, they'll stop at some point. I don't know where that point is.
Honestly,
at some point,
I think it's when the ESRB steps in. Total Biscuit on his 40-minute video of loot boxes, because of course Total Biscuit talks for a long time about this subject because he's rather long-winded. He was talking about how the ESRB should make these games at minimum mature rating, if not adults only. Because this is gambling. How could you say that this isn't gambling?
Not only is this gambling, but it's exploitative. Like, this is... I'm not sure if I want to go so far as to say it's extortion, but if it's not, it's damn close.
Particularly whenever it's tied to such a key aspect of the game. I mean, hell, the Shadow of War example, where we're seeing now where the last act of the game, unless you knew beforehand to play a certain way, you either have an exceptionally long grind or you buy loot boxes.
Yeah, so jumping from Battlefront to that, there were a couple of reviewers that actually played through the game to the end, as opposed to just like, I don't know, doing a first impressions review. Or...
Yeah, well, let's be perfectly honest. What I do and call first impressions, a lot of people would call a review, just because I usually go 2 to 6 hours depending on the game.
Yeah. And
usually that's not what I would comfortably call a review, but there's a few times that I could have called it review and not, been too far off.
Yeah. But so anyways, people who've played the game, like, truly to completion, in order to get, like, the true ending or the best ending or the complete ending. I don't remember exactly how it was worded.
Well, I've done a little bit more reading on it, and it seems like there's the first half of the ending, and then what people are calling the true ending is just another part of that ending. It really depends on what terminology you want, because there's some apologists, which not sure if that's the best term for it, but one of the articles I was reading about how you don't need to do loot boxes in order to get through your Shadow Wars, which is the final chapter of Shadow of War. And they were talking about how this is just part of gaming now. You just need to deal with it. They were talking about how if you go into it as not looking at it as the true ending, but just another part of the ending, it's not the true ending, but it's all just doublespeak. I think a lot of it is just denial that the gaming industry is turning on us. I mean, that's the only way I could look at it at this point, is that the AAA publishers, it's not the developers, but for the most part, unless, it's just an arm of them, like maybe Warner Brothers would be a good example of that. But it feels like they're turning on us and trying to squeeze us for every single fucking penny. And it's getting irritating.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned this last week, and I've already talked about it today, but I'm pretty sure, like, I think I'm going to stop buying games that have this shit in it. Just full stop. Which is really sad, because, I was looking forward to Battlefront. I'm looking forward to... I can't think of the name. It was the E3 game that I was most excited for, with, like, the mechs and, whatever that game was.
I'm blanking on it. I did see some stuff about the new MechWarrior game coming out.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't have loot boxes. That's going to be one of the worst ones.
Yeah, I mean, a hard stop for me is definitely AAA games that have loot boxes now. Indie games, the big indie games, I'm not sure on yet. Usually when they have them, it is to fund something else. But then you get to things like PUBG, where they promise no loot boxes until the game is released, and they put out a loot box because they need to fund their esports. Never mind the fact that they have 2 million players on Steam. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Their peak player count is coming up just shy of 2 million now. And it's a lot of Chinese players. That game is taken off in Asia.
Yeah. I don't want to be too pedantic and split too many hairs in order to, like, justify certain things, but I'm just so tired of this, and I know that I'm just like one person, and it takes a lot more than one person, but
yeah, I guess maybe
you do what you can.
I'm a little leery to do a full stop, but it's definitely, the big games are definitely a no-go for me now. Granted, I don't buy many AAA games nowadays, and if I do, they're usually either heavily discounted or in a bundle somewhere. That's why refuse to say I definitely won't get Shadow of War, because the way they marketed Shadow of War with putting Shadow of Mordor literally everywhere in every single bundle ever, it makes it so that if it comes up, in a few years, it's going to be very hard to not get Shadow of War. Which maybe that's their long-term scheme, to have the long tail be these loot boxes, and that may be part of it. Because long-term gaming, it's not that much of a thing on PC, with some notable exceptions like Skyrim. But that's more the modding scene keeping things together, and that's why we're seeing paid mods over there. But on the console side of things, you see these games last for quite a while. But that's also, they tend to not have as much choice. So maybe that's where the loot boxes are really coming in. It's not for the PC market, it's for the console market.
Yeah. Console peasants ruining it for us yet again.
Yeah, it's not like they held back, Fallout New Vegas or anything. That was another article that came out this week. Which, it's kind of obvious if you think about it, but yeah. And it's not even just these two games. We had Forza do it as well. Granted, I don't know as much about Forza, so I can't really dive into it, but good thing there's someone here that can talk about it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Forza series. I'm so upset it's another game I'm not going to buy because they basically ruined huge portions of it by making it, or building in this huge reliance on this crate system.
Didn't
we talk a little bit about this last week?
I'm not sure if it made the show or not, but you were talking about how there was an article where they were saying that it feels like Forza is built from the ground up like a free-to-play game, particularly how they're taking some of what the game modes were before and putting them into these crates and making them consumables. Yeah,
so there was a Reddit thread where there was a mobile developer that makes free-to-play games was talking about all the systems that he sees in Forza, and it looks like that they've built a free-to-play game from the ground up in Forza 7 and then slapped a price tag on it and are selling it to people. And one of the things that they've done, the Turn 10, the developers, in all other Forza games, you could tweak settings, and basically it was like a risk reward thing. You could make the game more difficult by taking away driver aids and making computer cars or opponent cars harder, making them drive better, and that would give you and that would give you XP and money boosts at the end of every race. Or you could turn the driver aids on and make the AI dumber, and it would take away those boosts, and you couldn't go below 100%. Like with all of the aids turned on was like the base at 100% reward. And then, the more difficult you made it for yourself, the more reward you got, which, was great for all players of all, play styles, skill levels. And just those of us that were better could get into the higher level cars faster just based on skill. But now, while you can still tweak like driver aids and stuff, they completely remove that system of risk reward. And now you get those boosts from crates, and they are consumable, one-time use. And so, you can get a boost for having the weather change halfway through, which I think I don't know why that's a thing, but whatever. Or you can bump up the difficulty for one race to get a reward, and that sort of thing. They have done that. They've also jacked up the price of all of the cars in comparison to previous Forza games in order to make everything more grindy. They've removed a lot of the customization options that you can get for cars in terms of like performance components and things. They still have the cosmetic.
Oh, well, I'm glad they left all the cosmetics in place.
Yeah, you can still go hog wild with the
sarcastic
paint schemes and stuff. But the only way to get the majority of the performance part increases is through loot boxes, because there are now rewards from loot boxes. They've made it so that they've tweaked a lot of the game modes so that you can't do as much with fewer cars. In all previous Forza games, basically for the first dozen or so hours of play, you would have 3 or 4 cars that were rewarded. Like, you got your starter car, and then you had a few that were rewarded to you, and then typically you could buy another one. And that would allow you to compete, and, you know, you could have 4 cars and do 25, 30% of the races. But now, there are a lot more, all of the race circuits are a lot more specific to what types of cars you can use, or what makes and models, or years, meaning that you have to have a lot more cars. So you have to, again, either grind a lot more to get the in-game currency to buy the cars, or, hey, buy loot boxes. And you can buy loot boxes with the in-game currency. If you win, and you don't have, well, at least this is based on the reports. I have no first-hand knowledge of this, but based on another article that I read last week, which we should try and find, they were saying they would take you like 2 to 3 race wins to get the base level box with like no guaranteed like rares or anything like that, and it would take you 5 to 6 races to get the second tier, and that was if you won and had none of their like consumable credit boost things on. It's just bullshit. They've turned it into what is it that a fee to pay, or no, they call it pay to earn.
Yeah, there was Ars Technica article that was calling it pay to earn, which is not wrong.
No, and it sucks because I love the Forza games.
You sound extremely upset about this. No, I'm not. Picking on you about that because, how did we get to this point? I mean, that's kind of the thing that really gets to me, is that I'm looking around and looking at the news, and I tweeted this out this week that it feels like I need a hobby to get away from my hobby because it's pissing me off too much.
Yeah, the gaming industry does not do a good job policing itself. It doesn't have the unions and things like other entertainment industries do.
Yeah, there was a brief thing earlier that I was watching talking about how the gaming industry is the only industry that doesn't pay any royalties. This was on Jim Sterling's Dreamquisition talking about how the $60 game is a lie when you consider that they piecemeal off all these things, and now the loot boxes just add to that. But there's no royalties whatsoever. And we did we've talked before about how the voice actors won royalties, but honestly, the voice actors are kind of on the lower end of where I would expect royalties to start to work their way in. Because hell, the writers, the developers, I mean, they don't get royalties either.
Yeah. I mean, the gaming industry needs regulation and unions. Because in the film industry, like, everybody's got a union. There's unions for
I'm
the
surprised
camera
that there's
crew.
not unions for unions in the film industry. As a matter of fact, there probably is.
There might be, yeah. But I mean, they have a ton of unions, and if you work on a film crew for, big Hollywood, independent films and stuff are, different. Like, they have all the rules, but they don't have the money. But if you work on a big film crew, even as just like, a cameraman or a sound person, as soon as you go over a certain time, like, you start making double and triple time, and you get paid well for the work that you do. You're treated well. There's a lot of regulation.
Well, there's also the 30-mile zone and around Hollywood, and that's why a lot of just offset footage kind of looks the same. There was a Tom Scott video about it, about the 30-mile zone, and while a lot of old sci-fi looks the same, it's because they kept using the same shooting locations, because of the 30-mile zone, if you go beyond that, you just have to start paying a lot of travel expenses for your actors. A lot of extra pay. And, that is a downside of it, but, it also prevents, let's go shoot in Utah. You have 6 hours to get there. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, it feels like the ESRB has really let us down, to be perfectly honest, because they should have stepped in long before this. How they should have, well, granted, the ESRB, it's probably not their jurisdiction for mobile, but yeah, there should be something like the ESRB for mobile gaming. And maybe that's where Google and Apple needs to step in and start looking at these, because hell, Apple was throwing a fit when the Confederate flag was in Civil War games a couple of years ago when, I can't even say when that big kerfuffle was going on because, it's back around again, but, not to get too political, yet. We'll see where we go from there, but, Apple was taking, what's Google doing as well? I know Apple was, but, Apple loves to censor at a drop of a hat. They're almost as bad
I don't think Google was.
Google probably limits their censorship to YouTube, to be perfectly honest. But Apple was taking down games that had Confederate flags in them, never minding the context. But they leave all these hugely exploitative, slot machines. I mean, that's what these are at the end of the day. They're a slot machine. They were leaving all these slot machines on their marketplace and never really policed them and just let them go hog wild. But then again, there's so much in the mobile gaming scene that I've seen, poking around the Google Play Store, seeing, hey, look, this is definitely not Mario. Or screenshots of, hey, doesn't that look like Banished? Huh. That's strange.
I saw a game called PlayerUnknown's Battle Gear.
There's one
earlier.
There's one on Steam now. PlayerUnknown Survival. Or no, it's not PlayerUnknown's. It's shoot. Now I'm gonna have to go hunt that down because it's gonna bug me. I may have gotten a review copy of that actually. Hang on. I'm not seeing it on my game list, which is irritating because I think I got a review copy of it, but then they revoked it. Yeah, that's what they did. They put it out and I had it for less than 12 hours after getting the review key and that was revoked. No idea why. Let's see. Let's search player. I'm not seeing it here, but it's obviously trying to get clicks from PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And we're starting to see that popping up on Steam now. So there's the same problem going on from just a lack of policing. Granted, we're getting a little off topic, but it's the same basic idea where there's really no oversight whatsoever. And I hate to say that we should bring the government into it because honestly, I don't trust it at this point. Especially with the current administration getting a little bit political again. But, there's something that has to be done, and the ESRB is just sitting on their hands at this point.
Well, I don't know if the ESRB, it's, what is it? Something ratings board? I don't remember what the ES stands for. Electronic something ratings board. Regardless, I don't know if this is exactly part of their original mandate.
The Entertainment Software Rating Board.
But, they are supposed to be the self-governance of the gaming industry so that the federal government would back
that's
off.
The entire reason why the ESRB was created was to keep the government from coming in and regulating.
Yeah, and I suppose that if they don't want that to happen, they better get off their hands soon. Because I seriously cannot imagine the federal government, even as ineffective, let's say, to be kind, as this administration is, I just can't see them not coming in.
They're usually effective at babysitting.
At the very least for the tax dollars that they could be getting from all of this stuff. But, gambling is illegal in many, many places in the States.
And considering also that a lot of these games are marketing this to kids, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
And a lot of these games are shockingly not rated mature. Do you imagine the outcry that would have happened if this happened in the 90s when the violence in Mortal Kombat, and I'm talking the original 2D side-scrolling Mortal Kombat. Can you imagine if the loot boxes were happening back then as well? Oh.
Yeah.
Because it's just... I'm shocked that we haven't seen the outcry yet. I'm expecting it within a year. We're going to see a huge outcry and some sort of legislation starting to bubble up, because this is starting to hit too many AAA games for people to not notice. I think it's going to really happen though after a couple kids start racking up some huge bills, because that's when it started happening. Yeah, some control in the mobile marketplace. What was it? The Smurfs game? There was a Smurfs game that had it where you bought Smurf berries. And some kid racked up a $10,000 bill.
Yeah, I played that game. I was not that kid, though.
No, you only racked up a $5,000 bill. But,
yeah, something like that.
I remember there being something about that where it was essentially just a town clicker game, and the berries were used to skip all the time. The timers, I should say. The timers. And there was a huge outcry and it caused Apple to step in and make it so that there has to be confirmation on every single purchase. Because before that, if I recall correctly, I could be completely wrong there, and that wouldn't be the first, that they were able to just, click through and, buy. And I'm really expecting, a few kids rack up a huge bill on maybe Shadow of War, or I would say probably the sports games would probably be the most likely though, because that's also over there. Granted,
well,
I'm not.
Wasn't it?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Wasn't it last year there was a kid who spent like $2,000 on FIFA or something like that on their microtransaction system?
I think so. Because they have the Ultimate Team, and it's essentially packs of game cards. And, that's been kind of a slow boil as well over there, where that's become kind of accepted. It's how the things go. It's how it is. It's how the gaming industry is now, so deal with it. But no, I'm not going to deal with it. Fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, I think unfortunately, it's here to stay for now.
It's here to stay
at some point
until someone screws up and racks up a $20,000 bill on Shadow of War.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's here to stay for now until
they hit.
Until something happens that causes the government or the ESRB to step in. One of the two. And then when that happens, who knows what will happen.
I mean, hell, the ESRB rating things adult only isn't going to be nearly as bad as it used to be, because what it was, the big stigma years ago was that brick and mortar stores wouldn't run the game. Yeah, they wouldn't shelf it because they wouldn't shelf adult only, because that was in their mind porn. Which, granted, there was a couple porn games, but they never really took off. So adults only usually was just this big boogeyman. Matter of fact, Oblivion actually was rated adults only at one point. Did you ever?
Really?
Yeah. You never read about that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a texture in the game that had female nipples. And you were able to mod the game to swap out the texture for the other texture that was in the game but not enabled. And that caused the ESRB to wake up, panic, label Oblivion adults only, and get it pulled from shelves.
Well, alrighty then.
And this is the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, by the way. In case you're wondering, what the hell is this Oblivion you're talking about? There's only one Elder Scrolls game, and it's called Skyrim. No, there's other games, and there's better games. And boy, I never thought I'd be defending Oblivion after not really caring that much about Oblivion when it came out.
I would say if they put an adults-only rating like on the front and like a big thing, it's like this game has gambling in it. Like gambling for real money. That would probably do something for parents and stores.
I'm not convinced. Mostly because parents usually ignore those ratings. Or I should say, the parents that shouldn't be ignoring those ratings ignore the ratings because it is the babysitter for little Timmy.
Yeah. God, I hope that the next generation of gamers, like my kids' age, with all of us being gamers ourselves.
Us having the LAN party in the old folks' home.
Well, yeah, but we all know a thing or two. Because I used to make shit up and lie to my parents all the time to get them to buy me games. Like, my parents actually were super conservative, and there was a lot of games that I got because I just, like, flat out lied, and they didn't know any better. And the internet was relatively new, and we had dial-up, and then even when we had high-speed internet, by that point I was a teenager and could buy a lot of games on my own. But it's like, if my kid ever tried to lie to me about a game, I would know almost immediately. It's like, nope, daddy's a gamer, son. I know.
Yeah, this one definitely has dicks in it. Here, play it.
Hopefully this is like the sort of the it sounds weird to say this, but like the death knell of this. Like, I feel like their days are numbered for this sort of thing.
Lootbox.
Yeah, we've hit peak bullshit. At least this type of bullshit.
I was about to say peak bullshit. Boy, are you going to be disappointed?
Because relatively soon, I mean, I don't mean like tomorrow, but in the next few years, someone is going to do something. Someone's going to fuck up, and then the government's going to step in, or the ESRB is going to step in, or, you know, the kids will get old enough to, like, get tired of this shit too.
Or they get old enough where they're having to pay for the loot boxes themselves, and they realize just how bullshit that is.
Yeah, in a few years, this is going to change. I don't know if it's going to change to something that's better, or something that's worse, or something that's relatively as bad, but this can't go on forever. It's got to stop somewhere. It always does in industries when there's a runaway in some way or another. The market might self-correct, and we might see a second gaming crash brought on by all this bullshit, at least in the AAA sector. I think the indie sector would be fine.
Yeah, I think indie is strong enough now that, well, it doesn't really need the publishing because it has Steam and the other digital distribution sites. But I'm just trying to think of a way out of this without having things turn bad, and I'm struggling to see just how we could escape this. And the problem is that I don't think even a consumer revolt or a boycott will work, because for one, boycotts are only as good as the follow through. And which Modern Warfare was it? But there was a screenshot that you see every time someone mentions we should boycott this game of Modern Warfare, whatever. We demand the server browser. It was the first Modern Warfare on PC that didn't have the server browser. And in that Steam group, it showed, I would say, probably about 20 or 30 people, and 2/3 of them were playing Modern Warfare. The exact version that they were boycotting in sarcasm quotes. Boycotts only work as good as the follow-through. And, it didn't work then because they still bought the fucking game. They made a lot of noise, they were ignored, and they still bought the fucking game. And on top of that, loot box boycotts are going to be even tougher because loot boxes prey on what they call whales. It's not the general public that buys them or the ones that make them profitable. It's the ones that spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on these loot boxes that make them profitable. And the fact that these aren't that expensive to implement in the first place. So even having just a handful of whales still makes it worthwhile because it's not that expensive. You're getting a little bit from a good chunk of the people, but the handful that, 0.5% are spending thousands of dollars on these things to be the top of the leaderboard or to be able to wreck ship first day in Battlefront 2 before everybody is able to level up if they stomach the game that long and stomach the level up system that long. And I'm just saying, I'm not seeing how the boycott could work on this. I hate saying it. I'm not seeing a good outcome for this. Am I being too pessimistic on this?
No, I don't see a good outcome either. Because it's like, I mean, some implementations of loot boxes are not that bad, and game companies will, you know, the AAA developers, the biggest, you know, egregious offenders are going to be like, see, you buy that game with loot boxes, so it justifies us putting loot boxes in our game.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
We're going.
I'm seeing people defending the loot boxes, or defending the games themselves, saying, well, if you don't like it, just don't buy the loot boxes, but still get the game. And that doesn't work.
Yep, because there's always been a suspicion that we couldn't confirm that they were tweaking the game economy, or whatever you want to call it, to encourage the purchase of these loot boxes. Balance. But yeah, the game balance. But now we have unadulterated proof in 3 games that come out, you know, back to back to back, basically.
In the same season.
And these 3 games, yeah, in the same season. These 3 games have fucked with the game balance to try and encourage you to buy loot boxes, effectively locking content behind the loot boxes. And, well, in one case, literally locking content behind the loot boxes.
This has not been a happy episode, has it?
Nope. And we have spent a long time on this topic.
Yeah, we ended up rambling a lot longer than we were expecting.
Like, what, 30, 40 minutes?
Yeah, something
I'm
like
not
that.
exactly 100% sure when we swapped over, but...
You're not sure when we swapped, huh?
Nope, I'm not sure. But I know what we swapped. Wink.
Oh, my.
Well, with that, let's move on to something else.
Yeah, let's move on to, hopefully, maybe the one out that we have that isn't negative. And I'm glad that we kept this subjects separate now.
Yeah, me too. Because I originally had lumped it all together. But our next topic is Open Critic takes a stand against loot boxes.
Yes, they're still trying to develop this, but this Open Critic, if you don't know, is essentially an open version of Metacritic, because Metacritic has been criticized, well, if you pardon the turn of phrase there, for several things. One being a little obscure about how they handle their I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. And I'm just blanking now. I've talked to.
I would help you, but I'm not 100% where you're going. You're talking about the way that Metacritic does their review aggregate?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Aggregate was the word I was stumbling over.
Okay.
And that'll be fun to edit out, which you probably won't.
Nah, it'll be in there for all to hear.
What can I say? I just talked for too long. The battery has gone down. I need to go get some coffee or something.
Yeah, I'm going to need coffee after this segment, too.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
But
carry on, though.
Metacritic has been criticized for that, and also the fact that if there's an update to a review, they won't update their review on their site. So, probably the more famous example is whenever SimCity's, the 2013 version of it, everybody was revising their review when they realized, oh shit, we were kind of misled with some of these systems. And Polygon was very famous for dropping their review score, 5 or 6 times? Which I will admit was kind of humorous at the time, but, didn't really serve any point because, they kind of reversed it in the end, and Metacritic still had their original review, which was really positive. Well, OpenCritic addresses a lot of this, and they're wanting to take a stance on loot boxes and crates and chests and, whatever the developer calls it, as the article calls it. And they're trying to figure out exactly how to tackle this and what to tackle. And I'm really hoping that, just having that information out there is, one way to get this out of this just hell of a mess that we're in. Because that's probably the biggest thing, is that there's really no aggregate on information about microtransactions and loot boxes and the like, unless you start digging. And a lot of gamers don't really dig that much. Granted, OpenCritic doing this instead of Metacritic isn't as helpful because it's not exactly the most well known compared to the other, but it's a start.
Yeah. Indeed. I mean, I think you pretty much summed up everything right there. I'm trying to think of something else to say.
Well, as soon as I found my words.
Hopefully, OpenCritic doing this is the key to unlocking this box.
Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay $2.50 for it.
Oh.
Unless you're playing Rocket League, then it's a buck per, but you get a pack of 5.
Woohoo! That's great value there.
I'm really sick and tired of the microtransactions. I don't have as big a problem with them in free to play. And
yeah.
Well, cross out, I'm still playing, and it has the loot boxes, but they don't have a way to buy them directly. They're all tied behind certain things, tied behind the season achievements, tied behind playing a certain amount of time per day or per week. And you could directly buy them if you pay for the in-game currency, and that's kind of blurring the line a little bit. But you have to specifically go after them. It's not you buy in and you just get the loot boxes. You're getting the currency, and they still have systems in place to try to prevent people from just buying in and being max power right away.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with loot boxes or literally any payment system if the game's free to play. Like if I'm going into it and not paying you anything, I get to decide how much sort of, I don't know, psychological warfare I'm willing to put up with on these loot boxes and stuff. And if I like the game enough, then I'll put up with it. And if I don't, then I won't. And I'll leave. And nothing gained, nothing lost. But when I have to pay a game up front, I have an expectation of getting that game and not getting a game that is just like a game I could get for free, but that I paid for already.
And probably what's even more egregious is you pay $60 for the game, then you have the microtransactions, then it has the season pass, and it also has a deal with Tostinos to get loot boxes through codes and fucking pizza rolls.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty okay with the tiered system for buying games. If it didn't include all that other shit, that's fine. Games are expensive. They cost a lot more to make than they used to, plus publishers and developers spend way too much money on marketing, in my opinion.
Yeah, the marketing budgets
the
marketing budgets are the lion's share of the budget these days.
Right, but I'm okay with a tiered system. Like, you get, the game for $60, or for $80, you get the game plus, the equivalent of the season pass, and then for $100, you get like everything forever that might come out for that game. I'm perfectly fine with that. There's lots of business models that do that with other products, and you just basically pick how much you want to be invested in it. You pick that tier, you go in, and you go. But they do that, and also, like you said, double, triple, quadruple dip, and microtransactions, DLC, loot boxes, season passes, sometimes multiple season passes. Wasn't it the original Battlefront that had 2 season passes?
Well, I know Borderlands 2 had 2 season passes.
Yeah.
And the second season pass didn't really give all that much.
Yeah. A lot of these things I'd be okay with on their own. Like, I'm fine with the idea of a season pass if you want to, essentially pre-order DLC. If they didn't stack it with other stuff. It's just too much. Too much shit.
Yeah, well, if you want to hear something depressing, Shadow War is sitting at a 84% review, but granted, this is only on 1,100 reviews right now. But the top reviews are all negative.
You talking about on Steam?
Yeah. Shadow War was was it Polygon that gave a scathing review based on its microtransactions and still gave it a 7.5 out of 10?
I'm not sure if it was Polygon or not.
I think it was Polygon, or maybe Kotaku. One of the two, was talking how bad the microtransactions were. Then 7.5 out of 10. I mean, you do realize that there is scores below that, right? Granted, I think the game actually has to give you some sort of disease in order to rate in the 6s. and 5 that just completely destroys your system. You don't want to know what happens if you get a 2.
This is interesting.
Well,
So the Shadow of War, we're way fucking off track. Do not accept the terms of service. If you just click the accept button without clicking the checkbox, it turns off the microtransactions, marketplace, and people attacking your base while you're offline. And then it has multiplayer in quotes. There is nothing that tells you it's possible to do this on the screen. It's detailed further here. You can follow a link. That's interesting.
Don't worry, they'll patch that out.
Breaking news, I guess. Just don't accept the terms of service, and then you don't have to deal with that bullshit. I mean, the base game would still be there, and it would still be tuned for microtransactions, but at least you wouldn't have to deal with it. Like, seeing it constantly. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and
I'm on board for that.
On top of that, the orc that's just sitting there greedingly rubbing his hands together.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Oh, fuck him. He's going to be an asset in every single Jim Sterling video from now until the end of Tom.
He's been in so many already.
I mean, it's basically become stock asset for him. Not that I can blame him, to be perfectly honest, because, damn, what were they thinking on that?
Yeah, they weren't.
I think they were thinking, ka-ching.
Yeah, that pretty much shows it off, too.
Well, I know you like it when I show off.
All right, let's just get away from loot boxes entirely.
Yeah, let's talk about something a lot... oh, wait. I'm looking at the next thing on the docket. Never mind.
What?
Unless you're changing the order of things.
I'm not changing the order of things. I just like the way you said that was very confusing.
The RPG that helps fight depression in Japanese people. Yeah, something a lot nicer. Talking about depression.
Okay. Well, yeah, but we're fighting depression, so that's nicer.
Well, talking about the stigma of going to a therapist in Japan. Because, come on, it can't be that bad. I mean, they can't all be like Jared.
So, first of all, to unpack that a little bit, Eastern cultures in general are very suspicious of therapists. Eastern culture is very collectivistic, whereas Western culture is very individualistic. So, in Eastern culture, admitting that you have problems is a social stigma because that means that you are dragging down your group. Typically, it's families, but it can be other things as well. The Japanese are notorious for making their work basically their life, and admitting that you have problems drags down your work, it affects your coworkers, and that would be shameful, so you don't want to do that.
There's a word in Japanese for death from overwork. Yeah.
So in Eastern cultures, and Japan's pretty notorious for this, just being a therapist doesn't work very well over there because there's a social stigma against you if you go to see a therapist.
Well, to be fair, it's not that much different here. There is a stigma about seeing a therapist in Western cultures as well. It's more of a general thing, but in Eastern cultures, it's worse.
Yeah. It's getting better over here, too. I mean, ever since I started down this career path, and I've actually kind of tuned into what's going on, it becomes more acceptable all the time. There's a lot of places where you would expect people to be like, therapy, whatever, but particularly in younger generations.
Yeah, why are you going to see the rapist?
Like late Gen Xers, and then millennials, and then what's the next generation? Is it Gen Y or Gen Z? Whatever, doesn't matter. People after me.
I believe it's the gold or silver.
Sun and moon, gold or silver.
No. Gold or silver was the second generation, remember?
Yeah, I know.
Pokemon joke. Because we were talking about Eastern cultures. And
I was going on with the joke, but it wasn't funny, and what else is new?
Well, you killed it, but what else is new?
Anyways, what they're trying to do is they've developed an RPG called Sparks, which is, in general, like other RPGs, based on what this article says, but it is an educational type game that teaches you skills, and they picked CBT, which stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, which is one of the most empirically tested and proven types of therapy to work. And in a nutshell, what it does is it teaches you to think differently so that you can either change behaviors or stop negative thoughts. It's really useful in treating anxiety and depression. I use different versions of CBT on a regular basis with my clients. So basically you play the game, and as you go through and find situations, it encourages you to change your thought patterns and adapt more healthy patterns. And that's pretty cool. It seems to be working as well. Based on the limited evidence that was in the article and a little bit of outside research I did myself, they're starting to see a small but noticeable reduction in depression and anxiety from the people who play this game. Something like 10% reduction in their depressed and anxiety feelings, which is not quite what you could get from therapy. In general, going to a therapist for a few months, as long as therapy is successful, you'll see somewhere like a 25 to a 30% reduction in your depression and anxiety feelings. But from just playing an educational game, 10% is pretty good. And that can make a world of difference to people when, 10%, like 10% of 1,000 is more than 10% of 100. And these cultures, Japan in particular, has just a ton of anxiety and stress and depression that just goes unreported because of cultural stigmas. So what it's doing to help reduce that is pretty fantastic. I'd like to get my hands on it actually and check it out for myself, but I'm not sure if there's a way to do that yet.
It does say that there's an English version in New Zealand. Not sure if it's going to be coming to the States or not. It'll be something to look into.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of time to search around for it, but I mean,
Well, I imagine
I could at least understand the words.
I know some of these words.
I know these. I mean, it is English. There are differences between American and Australian and British and etc. English, but in general, I could understand it. So,
well, if it's in New Zealand, I'm sure we could have at least someone translate for us.
Yeah.
Now, what does the dingo mean in this context?
So, I mean, do you have any questions? Anything that you want?
Not really. This was more just a kind of a feel-good piece, especially after the last couple, at least the main topic for the week. And it was also kind of tied into the thing last week where we had your expertise.
Yeah, I should put together a list of books, because there's been a lot of psychological study done on video games. I should put together a list of books for anyone who's interested. There's been some pretty fascinating studies and statistics, particularly stuff regarding WoW. The books that I'm thinking of are a little bit outdated. I should try and find some more recent ones, but a lot of interesting stuff. A lot of neat research you can do with video games.
Well, if this is the game that I found just now, I found their website. I'll drop it in the show notes and have it on the show notes. It says that it's not outside New Zealand yet, but they're planning on having other countries.
Yeah.
Is this it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wanting to make sure. And it does have a YouTube video on how it works, which it would be very helpful.
Yay, psychology 2 weeks in a row. I'm helping.
Well, don't worry, I'll class things up. Fuck.
Yay.
Oh.
All right, so anyways, Microsoft is rumored to want to extend PUBG's exclusivity on Xbox.
No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't. It's the game right now.
Yeah, they would be foolish to not want to expand it, and that's part of the reason why they were. Well, Bluehole was so pissed at Epic, was that they beat them to the consoles, because Fortnite is on both the consoles, and I would say that Bluehole would probably be very foolish to take them up on this, even though Microsoft could probably give them a lot of money. Because Microsoft is getting their ass handed to them this console generation. At least at the beginning of the year. That was the latest numbers I was able to find just on a very quick search. The Xbox One was being outsold nearly 2-1, with the Nintendo Wii getting about half their sales. Or sorry, the Wii U. It was the Wii U numbers. And granted, this is before the PlayStation Pro and the Xbox X, S, X, whatever. Whatever they decide to call the next version, I guess, as well. But they can't have made up that much of a difference yet. So they still have a very small share of the market. And I think Bluehole will definitely want to expand into the PlayStation where they have a lot bigger player base or potential player base. How much money would they have to give Bluehole to be able to make this profitable for them?
I don't know. I mean, they've sold a kajillion copies on PC.
I guess we're going to have to fire up Steam Spy to find out. Because this ought to be interesting. How many how many copies? Because PlayerUnknown's Battleground is peaking just shy of 2 million now. And it also kind of irritates me that it's all capitals, you know? PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
It's very angry.
Let's see. Owners, 15.6 million. That's a lot.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. At least that's according to Steam Spy, which is usually pretty accurate on these things. And, like I said, they would be foolish to take this to be, in my opinion. Granted, I'm not a business expert in gaming. I don't even pretend to want to be one on a podcast. But I would imagine that they would want as many players as possible. And right now, that would be getting onto consoles. And I'm just trying to imagine the performance on consoles. Because hasn't PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds also been very panned on just how hugely unoptimized it is?
Yes. Yes, it has.
Yeah, it used to be the joke that, can it play Crysis? Now it is, can it play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds above a low? And the answer is always no. It can't. Ever. At least without, just running two computers in SLI.
Trying to see if I can find numbers for how many PS4s have sold. They're all old numbers.
That's what I was saying.
A quick Google search.
I think the newest I was finding was before the kind of this weird half step of the generation. I don't think that they've really reported the numbers yet on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X.
To date. VG charts might be useful here. Alright, according to VG charts, the PlayStation 4 has sold 62.5 million units
only
since its launch. Compared to the Xbox One at 30.75 million. So, yeah, 2 to 1.
Yeah, or they're close enough.
Yeah. I mean, 30 million is nothing to sneeze at, but I mean, you know.
Yeah, you would go for the bigger
I agree
number.
with you. Like, yeah, it's like how
or
much
better
money?
Yet, both. Because why not both?
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft does have fuck you money, so I mean, they might be willing to pay them enough money that they would go, okay, yeah, that works. But if I was them, I would be asking for, like, I don't know, $1 billion. If you give me $1 billion, I'll keep this exclusive.
I would be asking for Minecraft money.
Yeah, well, Minecraft was $2 billion. I don't think this is quite the phenomenon that Minecraft has been, because Minecraft has had years of staying power, nearly a decade at this point.
Damn, it is kind of amazing to believe Minecraft has been the thing for so long, and it looks like Battle Royale is becoming that. Granted, I'm pretty sure that there was some sort of Battle Royale in Minecraft as well.
Yeah, there's been basically everything in Minecraft.
Yeah. Well, how they built computers in Minecraft.
Yeah. But, I mean, basically, if I was these guys, if I was Bluehole, I'd be asking for $1 billion. I'd probably do it for $750 million. But, I mean, if they didn't give me that money, fuck it. Say no. Put it on PS4. Get access to another 60 million players. Or 60 million potential customers. If they could get on Switch, too, that would be nice. But
I don't think it would work on Switch. As in, it's just not optimized enough to work on Switch. Because isn't Nintendo's console still underpowered compared to the other two, even though it's the newest of them?
Yeah, it's still underpowered.
But yeah, that's also Nintendo's thing. Nintendo has two things. One, they never deliver enough of anything. Always have some sort of physical merchandise shortage. And two, their consoles are always underpowered, and they go for more staying power of their licenses, which, yeah, they have to milk Mario dry at some point. Yeah, his nipples, they have to be just chafed all to hell at this point. I mean, there was a big controversy about Mario's nipples. Or did you see that one? Yeah, people talking about Mario. No, I'm not joking.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there was talk about him having a swimsuit and showing nipples.
Nice. According to this, the Nintendo Switch has sold almost 6 million units already.
Can you imagine how many they would have sold if they actually had stock?
Probably 10 million, would be my guess. The Wii U, though, over its lifespan has only sold 14 million units. So the Switch is already almost halfway there, and it's not even been a year since its release.
To be fair, I think the Wii U was kind of sabotaged from the beginning because it felt like just an expansion on the Wii. It didn't feel like its own console, and I imagine that a lot of the more casual people that bought the Wii, especially since the Wii went into areas that didn't really have gaming saturation, just looked at the Wii. It's like, why do I need a tablet for my Wii? And I wouldn't blame people for thinking that, because hell, whenever I first heard Wii U, it's like, what is this? Well, outside of what the noise that a siren makes.
Wii U, Wii U, Wii U. Alrighty. Next topic. Yo, something nice and happy to round things out. Telltale will remove image of real-life assassination victim from Batman, The Enemy Within.
Oh. How the hell did this... Well, I think I know how the hell this happened, but you would think this would have been caught. But this kind of shows just how Telltale has been throwing things out the door, hasn't it?
Yeah. I have to pull up the article to remember exactly who it was. But it was the assassination
Russian ambassador, yeah, was it in Turkey? It was last year.
Yeah, it was last December.
Yeah, which feels like forever ago now.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a lot more than just like 10 months.
Yeah, wow. Boy, news really makes time slow down, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
But there was an image, and the article doesn't show it if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. Of the ambassador laying dead on the floor in the Batman game. And I could understand how it got there, most likely, because looking at the news photos of it, it looks like stock footage. The body on the floor, there's no blood visible. It looks like it's just an actor laying there. It happened in art galleries, and art galleries usually are very clean and very sterile, unless for some reason, there's a pile of cow shit in the corner being called modern art. And the gunman, all the shots of him were highly exaggerated, him yelling, waving the gun around. And if you go on Shutterstock and look at all the stock footage there, it would fit in perfectly, especially on some of the more obscure and more surreal stuff. So I imagine that if this wasn't just, someone at Telltale searching dead guy on floor and to use it as placeholder art until they put in their own art, and this ended up in stock footage somewhere, they probably looked at this and thought, this looks good enough. I'll do some magic with this. Put a filter on it, lasso the white background down, and there we go. And I couldn't blame him for it, because game development uses a lot of placeholder art to just throw together builds very quickly and start working out bugs. because art passes can be done and be swapped out very easily. So I definitely understand how it could be there and how it could be missed. Granted, it's still hilarious. As hilarious as a dead Russian can be. Right? You're sitting there coloring again, aren't you?
No, not this time. I'm just sitting here.
You're sitting there
listening.
You're sitting there being lulled to sleep.
I'm sipping water.
But
tasty ice water.
You probably shouldn't drink ice water, especially whenever your throat gets warmed up, if you know what I mean. It could shock the throat, make you cough.
I haven't had any coughs tonight, have I?
No, but I was saying more in general.
Right.
Behind the scenes stuff.
Indeed.
But
I just...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm just happy about this whole deal because a game company made a mistake, realized it, fixed it, and apologized for making a mistake.
Yeah.
That's so refreshing to see, and that's one of those things. It's like it's so pathetic that that's like a positive news story.
Yeah, really.
But it's just, I mean, if this was Warner Brothers or EA or something, they'd be like, no, we did this on purpose for reasons, and you're all wrong.
No. That'd be a political statement. It wouldn't just be a fuck up. It would be some sort of political statement that the developer was trying to make.
Right.
Or at least that's would be how it would be spun. or you would open up your loot box and there would be a dead Russian inside.
Oh God. Oh.
And you're trying to think, okay, do I want to keep this cosmetic or do I want to trade it in? Is this going to put me on Putin's list?
I definitely want to keep the dead Russian cosmetic.
But this is just kind of a silly thing, and shall we move along? Unless you want to say anything about dead Russians or placeholder art, because that's what this really is. And I imagine if this wasn't in some stock footage somewhere that a artist at Telltale grabbed to just be placeholder for their own dead Russian, their private dead Russian. Then this was just something that they grabbed off a Google search to be able to build their scene and missed it.
Yep. No, I'm good. I don't have anything else to say.
Oh, we know you're good. Actually, we know you're not, but good enough.
I'm going to pretend you didn't say the second part. I know I'm good too. Wink.
Well, we know you're bad. You're
bad to the bone.
You're a naughty boy.
Very naughty. All right, let's move it along to our weekly community corner section, which is fairly non-communified.
We've been talking about this one, trying to figure out what to do with it, because community feedback is kind of tapered off, which I could understand because we're nearly 2.5 hours into the podcast already, and there's not that big a gap between recording night, between release night and recording night. Yeah.
Which, it's fair. We love to get feedback from you guys. We love tweets. We love letters and emails and voice things.
Yeah, I said it before. But we know you're out there. We can hear you downloading.
Yeah. I was a little bit worried. Like, I wonder if popularity of the podcast is tapering off or something. And I mean, we've never been huge, but I went and looked, and in the last 3 months, we've gotten touche. But in the last 3 months, we've gotten more downloads than we had in the past. Was it 9 months? Since we opened our Podbean, or you put our podcast on Podbean.
Yeah, they're a lot better with the analytics.
So our audience is growing, and welcome to all of you new people who have been listening to us.
Hello.
We hope you enjoyed the show. But so I think what we've talked about this a little bit, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to make Community Corner not weekly. It's basically just going to be when we get enough stuff to have one.
Yeah, which I probably should taper off the question of the week as well, which is a little disappointing. If things pick up again, I'll reintroduce it.
Yeah, So we just want to adjust the show. We don't want to waste anybody's time, waste our time. So we'll fill this
not release the
section
moths every week.
Yeah, basically this will just give us an extra news topic every week, or maybe a second discovery queue. It'll be on a weekly basis, but we're just going to be making a little bit of a change to the show.
Yeah, I will say that
we still
my views on the podcast over on my YouTube channel came with Caffeine Rage. Ding. It's kind of erratic, but occasionally there's an episode that gets a couple dozen views, which pretty good for my channel size. I mean, you may scoff.
Yeah.
Video Game Logic episode 81, a shameful display of microtransaction, which I'm very proud of that title, by the way. Got 20 views, which for my channel size at 170 subscribers is pretty damn good. So it's definitely, we're picking up popularity. It's just, not a lot of interaction, but I think it's mostly due to our episode size. But we don't want to cut things down.
Yeah, we've already been cutting down a little bit just to help accommodate my personal life and work stuff. So don't want to cut them down anymore.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be in listenable bite-sized chunks, and we can't have that.
Yeah, who wants that? So,
there is one.
We still want to encourage you, though,
that we haven't really discussed is to do two halves of the show, because a couple podcasts that are more long-winded that I listen to split or have essentially two halves, but I'm not sure if we have a show that's easily splittable.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not unless we released each. Well, I guess the three core segments are games we played, news, and then community/discovery queue.
Yeah, which that doesn't work that well.
Yeah, we could rearrange the show and put discovery queue after games we played, and then do games we played and news.
I'm not sure if that works. It's just more.
Yeah, I don't know.
A possibility, but I don't think it would work.
Yeah, we could maybe talk about it, but not right now. But we would like to encourage you. Please feel free to still send in text letters, audio letters, questions, send us tweets. And if we have a week where we get some stuff, we'll throw a community corner
up.
Yeah,
that's VGLpodcast@gmail.com or Twitter, VGL Podcast. Ding.
Ding. Alrighty. Well, with that little, I guess, PSA out of the way, it's time to go for the theme song. Yeah, I said it this week.
And I got a game right off the bat. It is a Hat in Time. I've seen some waves going on about this. It looks very interesting. It looks like a love letter to the 3D platformer of the N64 era, the one that Ukulele should have been. I don't see any of my friends having this yet, which is a little odd, because usually there's someone that has these things. But who developed this? This was developed... I think this may be a new company. Yeah, this is a new company, so... not a big track record, and I'm not sure of the people behind it. But Ahead of Time is a cute as heck 3D platformer featuring a little girl who stitches hats for wicked powers.
She is cute.
I will say that I like the art style. It has the sort of the simplistic textures. It's not
right.
It's a very cartoony art style. I like it. It's just, would it hold up over the course of gameplay? It does look like they have some very varied worlds, though. And some very impressive skyboxes.
I really don't like 3D platformers, though.
Yeah, 3D platformers are definitely hit or miss. It really depends on how assisted they are, because there's usually some behind-the-scenes assistance on how the 3D platformers work. And if they go, completely hands-off and, no help whatsoever, it can be very frustrating. It's one of those things. There was the thread on Twitter several weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago at this point, talking about little helps that, or little tricks to help players that game developers do, and things like after you step off the ledge, you could still jump for just a split second.
Yeah, what did they call that? Coyote time?
Yeah.
In honor of Wile E. Coyote?
Yeah, as long as you don't look down. And there were actually people pissed about that. About all the little tricks, feeling like they got tricked. But they don't realize that how irritating a game can be without those little things, especially after you played so many games with Coyote time. Or having what I believe there was another one about XCOM, how hits were calculated. That the more often you missed, it ramped up your hit chance more and more behind the scenes.
Yeah, but it also has a reverse to that. Like, the better you're doing, the lesser chance you have behind the scenes of actually getting hits and stuff.
Yeah, there was actually a video on YouTube that just before the podcast recorded, this recording, I should say, where there was talks about how game developers save gamers from themselves, trying to kind of nudge gamers into playing the games properly. And there was a big talk about XCOM 2's turn timer, or the turn limits, trying to make XCOM 2 more risk-based, which I'm not sure if I really agree with.
Yeah, I completely disagree with that. I've made my feelings
especially
very well known about the turn timer.
Well, they were trying to prevent the Overwatch spam, and kind of creeping gameplay of the original XCOM. Or I shouldn't say the original XCOM, but the original reboot XCOM. It's so weird to see, the same name used. And, when you say original, you're thinking that 1990s XCOM. But the original Firaxis XCOM, where people would just creep across the map, and they were trying to prevent that. And they were trying to give the carrot with the build system, but it didn't work out quite as well. But I think the game's just not built around it. It's too punishing if you're too risky.
Yep.
But it doesn't really reward it. And we're completely off topic.
There's no reward.
But we're chatty this week.
We are.
Do you have a game?
Nope. I've gone through an entire queue while we were sitting here talking. I didn't get shit, so I'm in a second queue right now.
Well, I got a second one. On my second pull. Bermuda Lost Survival. It looks like it's a survival game where you're on a raft in the Bermuda Triangle. And it has a lot of, undersea shots. So I imagine that there's a lot of swimming, a lot of probably hitting docks. It looks like Waterworld Survival. And it can be very interesting if done right, but also very bad if it's done wrong, and it's on your wish list. And that's another genre that's just kind of just taken off. It's just the open world survival. It's nice to see them try to do something outside of just, okay, here we are, we're in the woods again. Oh, I think I just got something that's off your queue.
What?
Secure Gamer. This is not on your wish list. So I'll put it on my Discovery queue. Because why the hell not at this point? Absolutely. I mean, it's a secure game. So if you don't know the secure games, essentially boobs. Boobs. And there's also some boobs. And this looks like it's a gamer version of it. And a lot of boobies on these screenshots.
So I got one. It's another Sakura game. Winged Sakura Endless Dream.
I believe I have that as a review copy.
Yes, you do. It looks like this one's got a lot more gameplay to it than it's not a visual novel.
Yeah,
I'll pick this one. I got
it's
one.
kind of weird to see a non-visual novel because, let's put it this way. I'm tabbing through and it looks like they definitely have the nudity patch.
Oh yeah, they do.
Well, I was looking at the Secure Gamer. And, look, all three of them are naked.
Woohoo!
I have to admit that I don't see the point of these games if you're not running the nudity patch, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I don't either.
Is that just me being a perv?
I mean, most of these games don't have good storylines.
Well, I probably shouldn't be
Some of
asking
them do,
Jared on this one. Let's see, Mobile Port that I've played before and wasn't really hip on, so we'll skip that. Nope. I mean, I've already... Oh, God. Let's put that in not interested.
What is it?
Well, I'll just tell you the name of this and you'll understand why. Loading Screen Simulator.
Okay. Yep.
And that's also free to play. So if you want a loading screen, well, there you go.
This looks interesting. The Ultimate-est Battle. It basically is Worms, but free to play Worms. I could go for that.
I can't tell if that's an asset flip or not. I know it doesn't look good.
What?
Just random. Looks like Russian shooter.
Oh, something you got. Okay.
Yeah. I did get something that looks interesting, though. So I'll put it on the list. Dungeons 3. Well, the follow-up to Dungeons 2, which was a follow-up to Dungeons. Essentially a reimagining of Dungeon Keeper. I think it's Dungeons 2. I've gotten a review copy of it. It's a game genre that I haven't played a lot of, and it requires a bit of of adjustment. If you haven't really played a lot of this style of game, you're building a dungeon and trying to essentially protect yourself from all the heroes trying to kill you, while also pillaging the lands and being a general naughty boy. Basically Jared's weekend.
Woohoo!
At least if he's playing the X series.
So I finished my second queue. I wound up with 2 games, so I'm not going to start a third one.
And I've gotten 4. So should I do a second queue?
No, you got 4 games. My first queue was just bullshit. Like, very clearly, like
Steam Direct shit.
Steam Direct shit.
Which, it is so hard to get through some of the Steam Direct stuff these days. Steam Direct is starting to really piss me off. Especially having to wade through it for review copies of stuff. Yeah, trying to find the diamonds and all the mountainous shit. And there's so many games out there that just wow. Especially things like Achievement Hunter. I've seen probably a dozen different versions of Fidget Spinner Editor. And no, I'm not joking. That's a thing.
Yay.
And what's hilarious is it's so slapdash together that they don't even consider the damn art assets. So in the video, because of course I have to go look. It's so terrible, I just can't turn away. The thing's wobbling. It's not a good fidget spinner. It's shitty. And no, sir, I don't like it.
Shaking my head, no.
Oh, so is it time for the part of the podcast where you go first?
I think it is time for the part of the podcast where I go first. So, first of all, if you want to find me on the internet, you can do so by searching for Gaming Psychologist on YouTube, where I have one actively running series that is VGL.com. There will not be a new episode this week between all of the sickness and the work busyness
and the bullshit.
And the bullshit. I did not record a new episode to release this week. But if everything goes according to plan, I have like 2 nights where I can record stuff. And I'm going to be getting back on track for the foreseeable future. I'm also getting all caught up on Divinity, which
you're going to catch up on me.
Didn't record.
Yeah, which we could have recorded, but I don't think it would have been a good evening. I was cranky. I was sore. Well, that actually sounds like the end of a really good evening, but you would be wrong.
But anyway, so I'll be caught up on that soon. That was what I was doing so much rendering on and editing and things, which I mentioned earlier in the show.
Ding. Oh, wait.
And other than this podcast, that's all that's coming up on my channel in the near future. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Twitch finally has enabled it where you can download your streams directly from them instead of having to go through like a third party.
Well, just don't cross them.
Like piecing together like the bits of the stream that it puts together for you. So I've been going through and getting my stream archives from the last few weeks and editing those together to put up. I haven't done it yet. Like, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm working on it. So those should start popping up soon too, maybe even this week. Outside of that, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so by following me at JMA4707. I tweet about all kinds of things. My most popular tweets are the political ones. I can't remember who it was I responded to about Donald Trump, but I got like 6 likes and a couple of retweets on that from random strangers.
Did I ask what you said?
I was like, yeah, I got internet points. It was somebody that was like God emperor Donald Trump. And it could have totally been like
a troll,
sarcasm, or a troll, or a bot or something. But I just like very briefly was like, there's so much unhealthiness right here. Treating anyone like this is unhealthy. But the fact that you chose the person who may be the worst U.S. president ever.
Well, I don't know. Jefferson has the whole Trail of Tears thing going for him.
Yeah.
Trump ain't done yet. I mean, Trump still has possibly 3 years. I sure hope not 7. What the hell would they have to? What would the Democratic Party have to run against Trump to lose again? Outside of Hillary, second time or third or whatever it is this time around.
Dog shit.
No, the Republicans are running that.
Anyways,
I mean, come on. He can take an IQ test and have it come back negative.
Hey-o. You know, IQ tests are not actually good for predicting a person's intelligence beyond the age of something like 8 or 9.
Well, why do you think Trump is so adamant about taking one? Or now I guess it's coming back that he was joking? Or have you not seen that today?
I haven't seen the update to that. I saw the initial thing. But anyways, if you want to watch me stream games on Twitch, you can do so over at twitch.tv/jarthur4707. If you want to be friends with me on Steam, you can send me a friend request at jarthur4707. I accept all friend requests and talk to all the lovely people.
And if you wish to know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Wazoo. Wazoo, also known as what we have loot boxes coming out of. Well, actually podcasts as well, because this is episode 85. So it's
80 something.
Well, 85. I have it numbered here. Remember, I have my list. So right. We have both podcast and loot boxes coming out of our Wazoos. And remember, it's Wazoos plural for this instance, because we don't have one collective Wazoo. Even though I'm sure Jared would like that.
Indeed. And where can they find you and what's going on for you?
Well, if you're not completely turned off already, you can find me over at Gaming with Caffeine Rage, where I have, in theory, 3 Let's Play series going. I have Dark Cloud, which is just really kicked off. It's in its technically second week now. The second episode's just been posted. The third will be later this week. I guess it would be called a roguelike these days, but it's an action-adventure PlayStation 2 game. Yes, I am in the emulation station. RimWorld's still ongoing. I had battling some bugs of the computer variety, not the RimWorld variety. Had some interesting things going on there when one of my mods started malfunctioning and kind of breaking other things. Turns out a malfunctioning Roomba could destroy a mortar.
There you go.
Yeah.
I guess.
Or I should say, make it inoperable. At least I think that's what was causing it. Because I disabled that mod and it started working again, or working full time. It was being intermittent, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I noticed all the blood, which sounds wrong out of context, doesn't it? But I noticed my Roomba, which I named Tango because I didn't put enough O's in Roomba before, and it ended up being more pronounced Rumba. So I was calling them different dances, but that mod was malfunctioning, so I had to replace it. or I should say rip it out, and that was a fun process. And speaking of fun processes, we also have Divinity Original Sin. Usually, it's off this week because I was going to be a very grumpy boy otherwise. And, well, Sunday Sampler also, in theory, should be there. Like I mentioned before, slight issue with the downloads. I mean, let's put it this way. If I kept my download going at its rate, I would have had a... Hopefully by the time Trump would have been out of office. And silence, okay. And of course, this podcast appears there Fridays at noon. Or you can see me tweet about who knows what over at Gaming of CR. And who knows, maybe I'll find a hobby to escape from my hobby. Maybe I'll just make it all putting bullshit on Twitter.
Works for me.
Yeah, modern art. Oh, and well, since I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. You can contact us, vglpodcast@gmail.com, with your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics, or just tweet us, VGL Podcast, on Twitter. And we know you're out there. We can hear you. And yes, especially you. And stop that, by the way. Or you could continue doing that. Just give us some money. Because we do need money to help improve things and keep the show going. You can find us over at patreon.com/VGL Podcast. Or if you wish to see the show notes, which I am starting to tweet out, by the way. I figured out the URL before it releases, so that was always fun to try to figure out. Turns out the token, I just needed to clip that off. Oh my, that sounded wrong out of context. So show notes will also be on the Twitter, but you can find them over at bglpodcast.podbean.com. Or if you don't care about the RSS feed, you could also find us on iTunes, Google Play. But you're also listening to us, so you're probably listening to us on YouTube if you're not using one of those. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and our Discovery Key music is Doobly Doo by the same artist. And you can find his work at Incompetech.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my slightly scratchy voice. Bye now.
I mean, I can hear the scratching. It sounds like somebody should start a fight, and your voice is what is the sound effect that's used for the music to stop. You know, just that.
It's all fine now. I took a drink of water.
Well, why didn't you take a drink of water before? I mean, you had plenty of time.
I did take a drink of water.
Oh, I can't imagine what was before. You must have sounded like you smoked all the cigarettes.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I like our out-of-show banter now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just absurdly lopsided. With Nintendo...
Are you there?
Hello? Yes, I'm here. But you've lost me, it seems.
Uh-oh. I cannot hear you.
Yes, and the call just dropped. Well, the call dropped.
Okay. Okay. I can hear you again.
Did you hit mute?
No, I didn't hit mute. I just, like, all of a sudden you disappeared.
Well, it said the call dropped. I wasn't sure if you hit muted, you just hung up to reset things or what.
No, I did not. The call dropped all by itself.
Skype. Maybe we should look into moving to Discord.
Maybe. This is the first problem we've had with Skype in a while, I think, though, right?
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look into other options.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, should we just restart on this topic?
Yeah.
Because I have no idea when you dropped me.
Well, the last thing I heard was 2-1.
All right, well, I was in mid-sentence there, so we'll just restart from the very beginning. Look at it this way. More things to make me look completely foolish.
There you go.
Also known as any other week of the VGL podcast.